Your hosts are The Great Order and No White Guilt. And this is the After Party. The crown winner of last week is Mrs. Jess Horse, financially gifting 100 US dollars. God bless you, dear sister, an amazing woman, admirable and wonderful. Thank you so very much. Congratulations. In second place was No White Guilt Clips, another wonderful person doing so much service for White Wellbeing and financially gifting $25 for the second place finish. Thank you so very much. You will be able to financially gift on Entropy at a cost of 15% to you in just a moment. You can also watch the stream over there. You can ask and vote on questions. You can also financially gift over on Cash App at a cost of $0 to you and to us. Don't forget that you can also watch the stream over on theafterparty.tv. Theafterparty.tv. No matter what happens on these platforms, we will be available on theafterparty.tv. And as you all know, Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests here on The After Party. Now today, we are joined by the one and only, the immaculate, the pristine Jeff Winston of White Art Collective. Jeff, please introduce yourself to our advanced placement community. Tell them where they can find you, and then Mr. George will take us into the conversation.
Well, hello, guys. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me all right?
Beautifully, brother.
Wonderful. Yes, Jeff Winston here, director of the White Art Collective. The best place to find us is whiteartcollective.com. So, yeah, I'm the director of the community of artists of European descent, and we're trying to reinvigorate our arts and our culture and trying to reach into ever broader swaths of our own folk.
Amen. Welcome, Mr. George.
Hello, everybody. Let us know how the sound is. If we're all even, we can adjust it. But
yes, give us a tap.
What was it? Oh, you want to? Is this the right mic?
Sounded like it was. I heard some tapping.
Tapping on tap. Let me make sure. Yeah, this is supposed to be the right mic now that I got a new one. The old one crapped out. So I think we're good, everybody. But tell us if our levels are even. You all, well, those of you who have been with us for a while, you will know that Jeff has been a guest a few times on the After Party. And as Jason has mentioned, our site, theafterparty.tv, you can go put his name in and listen to prior conversations. I'm sure some of tonight's conversation will touch on some themes that we've touched on before, but kind of bring them up to date and talk about some things going on now. And of course, whenever Jeff is on, we always like to hear about what the latest is in the White Art Collective and how that is expanding. But we'll basically be ping-ponging between that kind of thing and what we do and a broader perspective, putting it in the context of what's going on in the culture about the opportunity we have. We've all been saying for a while, Jeff, Jason, and myself, and many of our peers, that there are millions, literally millions of people, just average people out there who are ready for the kinds of things that we talk about, because we're not saying anything that's really that crazy when you think about it. It's just that the narrative right now has gotten crazy. And the lockdowns, and especially everything going on in the COVID situation in the world currently, you might not think that it relates as directly to some of the things we talk about. You might think it gets a little broader into kind of Alex Jones kind of stuff, or to take your pick of people that talk about alt news and what people deride as conspiracy theory. But I'm not so sure about that, because it still is in the under the general rubric of people waking up to the fact that there have been false narratives that are kind of funneling us into these different ways of thinking and are very, very limited, very narrow boxes. And all of us, it behooves us to be able to use that momentum of people who are waking up to that kind of thing and fill them in with our perspective and be there for them with not only answers, because I know speaking for myself, I don't consider myself a political commentator. Part of my contribution is doing these shows, but it's not a blow by blow political analysis. I really am more of a creative type, going along with what Jeff does himself. And I very much believe that symbols and just how you carry yourself, it's not even what you say sometimes so much, what you say as much as how you say it, that sort of thing goes a long way. Although what you say is important, and certainly the language Jason has worked on and tested is vital. But symbols and implicit things in the arts and culture is 90% of how we were brainwashed and taken over. And that's the field on which we're going to be having to take things back. And it's not our job to preach about things, but we have seen increasingly, as Jason, again, being the wordsmith that he is, has termed Biden derangement syndrome. Since the election, and certainly since the inauguration, we have seen some people kind of losing it, or maybe exposing themselves for who they are. And some of them hate what we do. And again, we're not really here to give a full blow by blow about that. It's not really, I don't really know if that's necessary. But we need to be very strong and direct in who we are and offering an alternative, because for all those millions of people I mentioned that are ready for this kind of thing, a lot of us are going to get one shot in terms of their first point of contact with the kind of material that this is. And you have to think, and you have to hopefully represent, if you're someone who's been with us a while, or maybe you're new and you're checking us out, if this resonates with you. I understand not every content producer is your style. Maybe you don't like me, you don't like how I look, you don't like how I talk. That's okay. I don't get offended. But whether it's me or Jason or Jeff or someone else, at least someone who has the general sense that we have, we're hoping to represent something that is wholesome and positive and loving and socially intelligent enough to be able to walk that delicate balance of keeping a strong core of who we are and not being spineless, like we see so many people in media and politics have been, and has gotten us into all of these disastrous situations that we're in. But at the same time, not act like it's this club of 10 people and you're not ready to reach out to other people. You don't have the social intelligence or the savvy to be able to interface with different kinds of people with different interests who might not know about this, and be able to talk to them and be able to relate to them just on their level. So that's the kind of thing I'm very interested in, and I think is very of the moment, just to kind of set things up. And we're all here to, I'm just speaking for myself. Jason and Jeff can give their perspectives in the course of this conversation as it comes up naturally. But on that Biden derangement syndrome topic that Jason has give us this new coinage, yeah, we see some people pulling back. That's unfortunate. You know, we've seen some good people we know who kind of disappeared, and maybe they think it's the safest thing for them and their families. I'm not here to say one way or the other if I don't have all the information on what they're doing. But the thing that's more pointed is that we do see some people who take this perspective of, oh, they're going to call us the bad guys. Let's be the bad guys. And they're going along with the absolute worst stereotypes of what our people are about. And again, I'm not really the type, I don't really want to get up and make a video and act like I'm disavowing this and that. But for me personally, if you go back 3.5 years, my first posts on the Great Order or the old videos I made, I've never been about that. It's not really what I'm about. Unfortunately, sometimes people they think that because we do what we do, or maybe we've spoken to other people, because we're not purity spiralists, even though sometimes that gets hurled at us. So maybe we've spoken to other people, we've appeared on certain shows, we've rubbed shoulders with certain people, and then there might be certain assumptions about what we're really like behind the scenes. No, this is what you see on this show. What we talk about is who we are. We're not hiding anything. I don't have a pair of Doc Martens in my closet. All right. I'm just going to be frank about that. It's going to give you, a certain picture there. So that's my perspective. That's not the only thing we're here to talk about, but it's certainly something that's been on my mind, and I just wanted to air it out and have it be public. But I'll bring it back around to something a little more cozy. And again, the two gentlemen here if they want to add something to this, whether now or later in the stream, they can. But it's certainly not separate from what Jeff does in terms of being this presenter of arts and culture. Again, that's how we got taken over. And that's largely how I think. It's basically narrative. Jason does a lot of work on narrative and frame. It's narrative and it's arts and symbols is largely where this is. It's not to say there's not a place for politics, especially on the local level, as some of our guests have talked about. That's not really what my expertise is, but we're certainly happy to ally with people that do that. You've seen a little of that, and maybe there'll be more going on in the future, certainly. But you see funny comments like, we'll have a woman on the show, and it'll be like, well, women shouldn't be in politics. And it's my response is am I doing politics? Like, I'm a musician and I do some YouTube shows. That's not politics. This is just communication and culture and community. And women participate in communication and culture and community. Or if we have a non-white guest on, just to get their perspective, we're not giving them a position of leadership in some organization. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is a foot in the door. No, we're talking to people. So don't freak out if we have a non-white guest on. There have been non-white guest callers to Going Free who listen to what Jason's doing and really appreciate what he's doing. So I think most of you know that who have been here with us. And maybe if you're new, I hope that sounds refreshing to you and maybe a little different from what you were expecting. But as a host, I have certainly spoken enough and taken time away from our friend Jeff here. So Jeff, let us know what's going on in the White Art Collective. I'm not going to say that you have to necessarily address. I don't want you to feel like you have to address what I just said. But if it's in the background humming along, or if it's something we want to talk about later on, we can. But we've always been appreciative. And of course, I myself am part of it, being a musician myself. You present what I do. And we're always interested to hear what's going on. I know the White Art Collective website recently has gone into more of this aggregator kind of mode that you have, where you put up a few posts a day sometimes, where you're saying, this is a new video someone did, someone has this album in production, here's a song that just came out by this other artist. It's absolutely amazing to see the energy and the creativity and the initiative going on. So take it away. Let us know what's going on in White Art Collective, and then we could talk about just general culture and symbols and maybe some of the things I mentioned there.
Yeah, well, quickly, Jeff, before you begin, I just want to mention, clarify, it is Jared, it's the Biden-induced bipolar syndrome. And I was calling it the BIBS, and then Groundhog Fury improved upon that and decided it is now called, and I agree 100%, it is now called BIBS, and he made this. So
yeah, I've seen that.
Grown men shouldn't have bibs. Help your friends recover from Biden-induced bipolar syndrome. And very briefly, folks, that's just this. It's this quite nearly could be called a psychosis. It's certainly a neurosis that people are suffering from, and they're going one of two directions. That's why we've called it bipolar. So it's the Biden-induced bipolar syndrome and bibs. So if you are suffering from bibs, let us know, or if you know someone suffering from bibs, but it's one of two directions. You are either deciding that all is lost and you are quitting and disappearing, and there have been quite a few who have done that foolishly. And then even more foolishly, there are others who are deciding to become the villain as best they can in the anti-white narrative, which is worse than even quitting. And so that is why we mock the people who go that direction. And there we have it, bibs, and we thank the great Groundhog Fury for making this this syndrome even stronger than it was before in definition and title, and more memorable, and of course with this meme brilliantly created. But I just wanted to mention that. And bibs, that's what people are suffering from. Jeff, how are things going on in the music world, brother?
Well, things are going pretty good, and I do want to mention something there. I'm on board with you guys with what you're saying, and I think that because it does definitely, as you know, relate back into the arts and exactly what we're trying to do, and what has always been my strategy, which is to try to meet people where they are. That's what I've always done as an artist too. I've always been, kind of fascinated by trying to understand where the cultural zeitgeist is and trying to, when they say someone has their finger on the pulse, it's like they know kind of where the collective unconscious of the broader community is, and artists have an ability to tap into that, whether it's with a song or a film or a poem or a painting or whatever it might be, to kind of like capture the essence of that feeling and in a way reflect it back to the community and kind of even in a sense like shape or even encourage people to go in specific directions, and I think that's where we're at. And as far as bibs goes, I think what a lot of people should keep in mind is just because things are accelerating and there's just more anti-white stuff going on than we've ever seen, definitely in the United States and really in the Western world. Just because there's that acceleration doesn't mean that people's lifetime of conditioning it doesn't undo their lifetime of conditioning. They don't suddenly get it. If anything, if we don't have a very clear and sensible message, we're going to just further confuse them. And they're looking for answers, and if you just go and start throwing at them all of the symbols and the tropes and the things that trigger their Pavlovian conditioning, making ourselves, like you're saying, look like the bad guy, that's not going to help us. It's not going to help them. It's going to further confuse them. Actually, Blair Cottrell, who was on PWR the other day, I think I heard him say something like this. He was like, if someone just kept accusing you of being like a rapist or a child molester, would you just suddenly say, yeah, I'm a child molester? Would you just take that on? Like you were saying, that's what some people do when they're like calling you a Nazi, and then like, well, I'll just be a Nazi then. It doesn't make any sense. That's a terrible strategy. What this is a battle of narratives, and they have a narrative, and there's many sub narratives, but there's one general narrative, which is essentially white people bad. And then, we've been cultivating a narrative. Jason, your work has been incredibly important to that with Going Free and the dialectic that you've created. And there's also other narratives kind of in our sphere, but I think that you and Jared, what you're doing here as well, and how you're supporting it and creating of the culture and focusing on the culture and the mimetic warfare is, that is where really the battle ultimately is, because you can't just say, I feel like there's this plan of like, okay, talk about the JQ nonstop. That's step one. Question mark. Step two. Step three. Victory. Like, what are you doing? There's more to it than that. It's more complicated than that. We are a deracinated people, and I think we're kind of in a way victims of our own success. Like modernity made us soft too. It wasn't just some magical group of wizards who got us into this position. There's a confluence of a lot of different things going on, and we just kind of got soft. We lost our edge. We let a lot of these things happen, to be honest. And I still feel like a big problem is just people's unwillingness to really do the unsexy and unglorious work of day-to-day activism, but also just day-to-day, like build something positive, build something new, build a new business, learn how to actually really work with people. So, okay, having said all that, I'm sure we can delve much more into all that. And I agree, this is very important because, I feel like we're entering this new phase. So, it is really important that we have a good sense of these things and what our strategies are and what we want to do in order to reach out to people. So having said that, the White Art Collective is basically kind of entering into a new phase, kind of WAC 2.0, in that the first phases of what we were doing was basically building community. And and also just getting people to make stuff, because when I first started doing this, there was very little art going on in these spheres. It was mostly like fash wave, electronic music. It was mostly parodies. There was mostly there just wasn't a ton of stuff going on, and it's nothing against the people I appreciate the people who are doing stuff, but like, nobody came over to this because of the art scene. There just wasn't a heck of a lot going on. So like, that was kind of this first step of what I was, and all of this I just did instinctively, by the way. I didn't know, I just kind of fumbled around, but essentially the first thing we had to do is like get people doing stuff, get people creating things, incentivize them, let them know that anybody even cares to hear their stuff. That's what we've been doing with Saturday Night Live Stream, is like, as Blood of Tyrants, one of our artists, said, it's basically like an open mic for artists, and it is that way. You can get in there, you can get your stuff heard, you get some feedback from a community of people, of other artists, largely, and but you can get your stuff out there further, and maybe it'll go up the pipeline, maybe it'll go up, and Jason will play it, and Jared will play it, and and maybe other people will end up hearing about it. But that was kind of that first phase, and we have built this really solid community of people to where now, as you had said, Jared, we're going into whiteartcollective.com. We gave it a makeover, and it's more of like an aggregator site, because something you and I said, I think I was talking with both of you guys about this probably like 6 months ago or more, was that there was so much stuff going on, even just with WAC. We had so many shows, there was so much stuff being released that like you couldn't keep track of it. I couldn't keep track of it. Nobody could keep track of it. And if we can't even keep track of it, people around this inside, sphere, like certainly nobody on the outside is going to follow, everybody's Twitter and Gab and Telegram to make sure they find out all the stuff that's going on. So I finally was like, okay, I got to try to somehow kind of harness this energy. So, that's exactly what you said is what I'm doing, is I'm just, trying to link to all the new stuff that's coming out on the website. And,
Don't hear Jeff. Are we still, Jeff, are you there? Can you hear us? Jeff might have to return. He suddenly disappeared, and that may be an internet. It is the ghost in the machine. But if you can, there he has dropped off, so he'll be right back.
I like Jeff's avatar. I like the new avatar.
It's very cool. It is very cool. I hope
taking the White Art Collective. Well, he kind of uses two things. He uses the Bach on a lot of the social media, but then there's the that statue with the fedora on it. I don't know if that's also supposed to be Bach, but there's that image of Bach. But I like how they added the background, made it more of a graphic.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it looks like we have backstage, the one and only Jeff has returned. Let's see. Can you hear us, brother? And pick up where you left off.
Yes. Can you hear me? Sorry about that. I guess my internet cut out. You guys disappeared, and I was like, I think I'm alone.
It wouldn't be a live stream if something like that didn't happen.
I know, right? I'm kind of in the boonies, so that makes sense. Yeah, I was just saying that we've been collecting all these new releases of all this different stuff. There's music, there's books, there's people working on comic books, there's people, games, skits. I mean, pretty much anything. The point being that now there is so much stuff going on that it's hard to keep track of it. So that's now what I've shifted my focus on. Of course, we're still doing all of our same shows. We still do Saturday Night Live Stream and Dance Squared, Conversations with the Wind, and all that stuff. Bad Optics, our film show. But so we're just trying to get it to where, like, so to make it basically more accessible. So back around to the point of, trying to reach out to people outside of these spheres, like, I think, that's something I've talked about with you guys, and that's something that we've been discussing internally within the White Art Collective. We've had a couple meetings about kind of promotions and like, how do we get outside of this? We feel like we've kind of been in this rut a little bit. And as much as we appreciate all of the wonderful people in our community, in the Going Free community, and just like the broader white positive community, it's like, they've basically, with Twitter and they're censoring us and putting us in a little box. But it also just seems that we kind of get stuck, talking and saying the same things to the same people. So it's like,
right,
we've got enough going on now. We've got this art scene, we've got this community. We need to get this out to more people who are just, and again, we've always crafted it to where that was always the intention, is to not just talk to this small echo chamber and pass edgy memes back and forth, but to like get outside of that and have just normal folks be like, "Ooh, I like that song," and let them come this way because of those kinds of things. So that's basically what we've been really working on and strategizing here in the past couple months with the new website, and also just a new approach, just generally, like I'm trying to dig a little bit more into marketing and promotions, and kind of get into that world. I've been producing independent media for a long time, and independent art and films and music and stuff, and that's always kind of the thing that doesn't get as much energy as it needs, because it's like, it doesn't matter how brilliant something you make is, if you don't kind of have the mechanism to get it in front of the people it deserves to get in front of, it's just going to live in obscurity forever, and we don't want that, right? So we have all this brilliant stuff going on, and I'm determined this year, this is the year that we're going to start getting this in front of the audience that it deserves, all of these brilliant artists that we've been working with for the last few years. And I'm hell-bent on doing that. And as in relation to what you were saying earlier, is that part of that is crucial is riding that line between, kind of being inherently edgy, just in that we unabashedly represent artists of European descent, white folks, and finding the way to reach out to people, even with that being the case, and I think part of it is just letting the art lead, and don't make it about, I think a lot of people feel like they have to be like, oh well, we're white, it's a white thing, they really like hit that on the head. And it's just like, we're not hiding anything, but it's like, this is just some music, check this out, check out these songs, check out these artists, check out this short film, whatever it might be, and just kind of relax. And the other thing too is, and I keep encouraging people, like, you don't need to feel that you have to make something explicitly racial or explicitly political. And in fact, I encourage people to just kind of let go. If we're doing it right, if you're expressing yourself accurately as an artist, and I think doing it in the right way, you don't have to try. Like, your sensibilities will come across in whatever it is that you create, like, because as you guys know, there's so many little decisions that go into the creation of anything, whether it's a book, a poem, or a song, or whatever the case may be. So your perspective is in there just by that alone, so that you don't have to try to, like, how do I make this about being white, or about white people, or how I make this about my political viewpoint or whatever. You don't need to do that. You can just kind of let go, relax, and just express whatever it is that comes to you. I just try more and more to encourage people to do that, because again, I think going back to kind of the political paradigm, and I kind of see some people shifting to the cultural because they realize how hot the political situation is. It's like we're up against this this massive.
That's actually a good point.
Massive force, and it's like we have to take it to a level that is, again, it's kind of more. It is a spiritual thing. It's mimetic. It's unconscious. It doesn't seem like you're confronting this as directly, but it seeps in, I think, more through osmosis when we kind of do that and let go, let it be more subtle, and just be yourself, just be what you are. And that's what I've been trying to, like, encourage people, and I think that's the next phase. Sorry, go ahead, Jared.
Well, just a question on the spot, and I know it's a tough question. I'm not sure I would know how to answer this, but just to see if we have anything. Aside from just doing it and doing what you're doing, and I'm certainly doing that in my creative work as well, do you have any ideas, either of you, on how to encourage people to let go and walk that line? I don't know if it comes a little more naturally to creative people, although, as you said, I've certainly seen people who are creative in general, but they still think that they have to do something very, very overt. And there's a time and a place that it calls for that. But I agree that if the whole scene, where like every song and every poem was just, it was too on the sleeve. It's not that we're trying to hide anything. I just don't think that that's how it works. If you look at movements in the past, if you look at times of cultural ferment, and I know people have different theories about how much was it top down, or in more recent decades, certain things in media and arts, was it CIA psyops? Maybe a little bit, but I still think that it's not quite as tightly controlled as people think it is, and people's instincts are there, and European instincts are there. I know for myself, I'm a fan of rock music, and I largely make rock music. And I was just myself, I was disappointed in seeing the teeth taken out of rock music in my lifetime. And most of the rock music I like was made before I was even born. It's just more life affirming and more, there's a ragged joy to it. And there's certainly more masculine energy in it. And now I'm starting to hear some of that in what's coming through in WAC art. It's like, there's a lot I have to catch up on. But it's cool to hear that this is happening. It's kind of like the early days of FM radio, where it was this wild west and people were just kind of taking culture into their own hands. So to get back to my question, do either of you have thoughts on how do you take someone, because I can understand, to put myself in the other person's shoes and to try to be empathetic. I can understand that if someone just sees all this anti-white nonsense day in and day out for years, maybe they themselves or their family members have really suffered at something because of this narrative and because of what's allowed to go on. When they find a community like this and they have a voice, whether they're an artist or maybe they're just someone who participates by commenting or sharing memes, I can understand that they would really want to rally their flag around that, and they'd really want to be explicit. And again, there's a time and a place for it. Certainly the narrative frames and what Jason does, that is a very appropriate avenue where you do want to be explicit about it. But more in the realm of the arts and the things you deal in, how do you encourage someone who, I think their instinct is right, that they want to push back against that. There's a lot of pain and a lot of confusion. And so they want to say, screw this, man. And yeah, I'm white, I'm of European descent, I'm proud. And maybe they just have to get that out of their system first. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you got to meet them where they are and like I never, and here, just to be clear, I never tell anybody like what to make. I'm an artist and nobody tells me what to make. That's not how it works. And I would never do that to artists. I totally respect people's creative intuition and that they follow their own muse. So basically, for me, I think that the best thing I can do in the position I'm in is just to make that explicit to them that, like, look, don't feel obligated to make it about race or to make it about a political viewpoint or any of those things. That's not a prerequisite for, being affiliated with us or being featured by us. If you feel compelled genuinely to do that you want that to be in your art, if you want it to specifically be about our folk, or you specifically want it to be about some kind of political idea or something along those lines, then by all means, please do that. Just follow it wherever it goes. And I think the thing that that I'm trying to do is just give people the space to develop, because I think, along with what you just said, is that I think it is partially a phase. Now, some people might want to always continue to have that element in their art, and that's perfectly fine. There isn't, as you guys know, there's no like right way to go about that necessarily when it comes to the creative arts. It's like whatever you're compelled to make is right, so to speak, but So yeah, I think it's just a matter of letting them go through their own process. I think it is a case of like when I first got into this, you do want to because there's nowhere else you can go where you can express those kinds of ideas and it be accepted. If you did that in a leftist scene, even something mildly civnetish would be like shouted down. So I can understand that when people first get into this sphere, they're going to be really excited to make a song that will be accepted that is about those things. So, they're certainly welcome to, and we definitely welcome that kind of stuff. But then, you let them continue to make and continue to support and try to give them the resources they need and the feedback they need to continue to develop as an artist. And over time, I think most people will just tend to be like, okay, I've done that now. I said those things. Now I can go on and just sing about something else, but those things will still live in the DNA of what you create because your perspective has changed. So you're going to be creating through the lens of how you now see the world. And so it will be there, even though it might not be as explicit, and I do think that generally that's probably the kind of stuff that's going to land the best with like a broader group of our folks. It'll just tend to be better when you're not so wound up. I mean, but it's not to say some of the other stuff, won't. Like the Keep in Mind song that Zurius and Hyrith did. It wasn't like super explicit, but I mean, I think it was, if you listen to the lyrics, it's kind of clear, what it's trying to get across. And that's one of the most popular things, definitely to come out of the White Art Collective, but one of the most popular kind of songs around these spheres in a little bit. So, it can work, it just kind of depends on the moment. But then again, it's like, well, will that go outside of that sphere though? Can it go outside of our existing spheres? And that's the thing that we ultimately have to do. And, I think we just got to keep working with these different strategies and let people follow the muse and allow them to continue to develop.
I think that's really well said. This is what I would add. First of all, I want to say I thought it was a really good point that Jeff was making a little while ago about how some people are leaving the political and coming into the cultural just because they are no longer able to be in the political. And that means that these people, their heart is not in the endeavor. So those who are just showing up suddenly, and you're going to see them wanting to attempt to force the square peg of politics into the circle hole of the culture, and it's not going to work. It's going to be cumbersome. It's going to be ugly. And more importantly, and I think this is ultimately what generally we are talking about here, because I do see, maybe I should just hold that thought for a moment, but I think it's important to keep an eye out for those who are going to suddenly appear. And I think Jeff is absolutely right, that are going to be these parvenus, and they're going to be trying to go back to old, or they're just going to try to insert their Aunt Nat Nitwittery and other garbage into a cultural attire, and it's going to be lousy. It's going to be as ineffective. In fact, it's going to be as dangerous and harmful for our people and those who are doing good for Western kind as this sort of stuff is in the political or in the economic realms where these conversations take place. And we have to be on the lookout for that sort of thing. I'm also going to mention something that I'll be talking about on this Sunday, and that is this Sunday's Going Free, and that is the crypto Ant Nats, because I am even more firmly believed of the opinion now than I've ever been that the vast majority of the online individuals are crypto Ant Nats. These are actually hardcore anti-whites and pretending, and they've built up reputations for being Ant Nats of various types and various degrees. And their purpose is to come in and to destroy that which is effective, that which works for our people, that which betters our people, that which, and we're not talking about, nobody is on the verge with any vehicle. Nobody's on the verge of recapturing the destiny of all of Western kind. That is hogwash, and that is the thinking of children. That is the thinking of trifles. And that's what these people are. They're contemptuous trifles. So whether they are genuine ant-nats or crypto ant-nats, they are contemptuous trifles. And they don't show their faces. They don't do any streams. They don't even have to be a regular vlogger or to just show their face on a video and say, yeah, I'm the guy who's been saying. They're not going to say that because they're trifles, whether they're legit ant-nats or crypto. But I think the majority of them, the vast majority, are crypto ant-nats. And so what do they see when they look out at work that is being done that is helping white people? What do they see and what do they do? They see something that needs to be destroyed. And so they make every attempt possible to slander, to misrepresent, to undermine, to defeat, to do what have you. Now, if somebody even was an actual ant-nat of some type, they might hate the hell out of a group, a person, a group of people, or whatever it might be, that is doing good works for white people. But they wouldn't burn it down. They wouldn't do everything they could to destroy it. That is obviously only the activity of anti-whites. That's the realm of anti-whites. So we have to keep our eyes open for the crypto ant-nats as well. Anything that's endeavoring to destroy, especially relentlessly, that which does good on any level for our people, immediately reveals themselves as anti-white. That's just all there is to it. And we need to acknowledge them as such. Now, when it comes to, and then I'll pass it back to you all to continue the conversation. When it comes to the creation of art, it is extremely powerful. Well, first off, I'll start off with the juxtaposition. Using art as a cloak, like camouflage for a political ideology and economic ideology, is deleterious, is harmful, is still playing the villainy role. It doesn't matter if you put music to playing the villainy role. You're still going to look like the villain to the hundreds of millions of our brothers and sisters around the world. They're not going to, right now, the anti-whites hold so much power, and they are victimizing so many Westmen, men, women, and children around the world, that they are, per force of what's happening, coming forward, and they're saying, what else is there? In the United States, there's the Republican Party isn't going to do it. In the other countries, the conservatives or whatever on their false spectrum inside the anti-white narrative isn't going to do it. So they're coming forward and they're saying, what will? What can do it? We need to be the ones who are there for them. Not some tripping, trifling, anti-white, ant-nat losers who are taking ideology. And now this is and I'll draw a stark line between the vast majority of these people who advance this ant-nat nitwittery and the very far fewer in number people who have maturely and as adults looked at a particular ideology of governance and a particular ideology of economy and have come to the conclusion that they feel that that ideology and that for government and that ideology for economy are the best. And I think it's an unwise decision to call themselves national socialists, even though they believe that the ideology is for the economy is the strongest in their mind, and the ideology for the government is the strongest in their mind. I'm drawing a line between those people who have maturely come to those conclusions after intense study, and I find that the majority of those, that small number of those, the majority of them are in Scandinavia. When you look elsewhere around the world, you find fewer and fewer of those types of individuals. So when they start talking about that sort of ideology, that sort of ideology for government or economy, they are just ant-nat losers, and they're just playing the villain role. Big difference between those two. But when these people show up and they want to put a song, or they want to put a painting, or they want to put something on top of their ant-nat nitwittery, they're still playing the villain. It's still damaging to our people. Our people are still going to see it. If they see those people, they're going to say, I want nothing to do with that. I want nothing to do, because for them, it means everything that they have learned over the totality of their lives. So these people are here, whether out of their stupidity or because they're genuinely anti-white and they are feigning, they're cryptos, they're feigning being ant-nats. They are here to damage us. Now, we set that on one side of the juxtaposition. On the other side is tapping into our biospirit and creating art, creating music, creating poetry, creating a sculpture, creating paintings, creating digital art, etc. What I think is, and I agree completely, absolutely concur, that in every song or in every painting, you don't want to put the fact that you are white, or the fact that all of your art therefore is going to in every case be mentioning Western kind or Westman or what have you. Having said that, though, using the vocabulary and using the arguments that we make, the lexicon and dialectics, in going free in one's art is exactly the antithetical position, the mirror position of what the anti-whites did to us. They took anti-white vocabulary, locutions, arguments, and they put all of that into their paintings, their music, their prose, their poetry. They put it everywhere. It takes 1 second to pull up songs immediately, mainstream songs that are catchy as all hell, that were all about the struggle against Western civilization. And you can listen to them. They don't always mention the particular, that maybe this non-white race or that non-white race, and then the white race is doing it. They don't always frame it with those specific words, but everyone knows what they meant. Everyone knows what they were saying. The power of music, the power of art in general, is just almost insurmountable for the human animal. That is why the anti-whites moved so swiftly to shut down talented artists in the white sympathetic spheres, just like they shut down Zurius. Didn't even have to put anything into a song or a video, and they immediately would just ban the video just in case. So Robert E. Lee said, and this is of course in a different environment, but it holds true for the human spirit, that every army needs a band. And many generals over time have noticed that. Well, this is a war for the mind. This is a war of love. This is a war of words. And words, by the way, and we'll talk about this on Sunday as well, people who have thought that they were sorcerers, or people that we have all of these admonitions that come down from such people where they say, if you can know the true name of a thing, you can manipulate it. That is true. It's just not supernatural. You have to call things by what they actually are. Then that means what matters is what moves the human being, what moves the biospirit, what changes the hearts, what changes the minds. So what we need from White Art Collective, what we need from great artists yet to come to join White Art Collective, is for them to tell the story of their life and the lives of those around them, the real world. That's where they are experiencing. That's their real lives. That's their real world. And to be using the lexicon and dialectics of Go Free in that music so that it is instantaneously taken up by the population. Instantaneously. The young, the middle-aged, the old can drive down the street and have the soundtrack of their lives, of their oppression, playing in the background on the speakers over their cars, and be going to whether it's a virtual premiere of artwork or an actual museum where there's going to be artwork, or however we end up doing it, where the artwork is telling the story of the persecution of our people, of the remorse, of the hardship, of the oppression, of the etc. I mean, it's not going to do any good if you're an artist and you want to join White Art Collective, and all you do is talk about how daisies are wonderful flowers, and you've got that's not going good for you. You can make daisy, art if you want, But if you're never speaking to the condition that we are under, this thraldom, you're doing no good for yourself. You're doing no good for our people. And this is not at all what the anti-whites have done over the past however many decades. All of our lives, the lives of our parents, the lives of our grandparents, they all had the tunes that if they cared, if they were white sympathetic, either explicit or implicitly, they were singing the songs that were undermining their well-being. They were humming the tunes. They were reading the poetry. Where are the poetry readings that use the lexicon of go free and the dialectics of go free, and who are empowering our folks as a consequence? That's the question that I want to put out to all of the artists. This is drop all of the, and I will say, because I'm not running the crew of artists, and I can do this. And if they decide, if artists out there decide to dislike me, I take plenty of heat. I don't mind. I will say, drop all of that garbage from the past. Drop it all. You are hurting yourself. You are hurting all of us. You are hurting those bright-eyed white children out there that want to have a future that is other than oppression, that is other than persecution, that is other than making them believe, making them recite that they have all the benefits in the world while they actually suffer from all of the hardships in the world. Drop all that garbage from the past. And you know what else? I'm gonna tell you this too. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you're bright enough to realize this. Any individual in particular, maybe not, out there who's listening to my voice live or in replay. But all of those leaders that you fetishize from the past, all of those people, you like Halloween costume, you people dressing up in all of this garbage from the past, they would not advance their art today. They would not fly their flags today. They would not wear those costumes today, you imbeciles. We don't have all the time in the world. Did you not just hear what this imbecile himself, as president, said? Just, what was it, last night, addressed to the nation? The entire intelligence community is focusing on white of the United States, and therefore all around the world, is focusing on white people who aren't anti-white. How much more evidence do you need than to have them in your face saying, we are going to destroy you by every means possible? How long does how much pressure does it need to be placed? I mean, obviously our people have demonstrated some extraordinary amount of patience in South Africa. Our people have really suffered. And where are the musics? Where are the great musical tracks? Where are the great songs? Where are the great folk songs? Where are the great paintings? Where are the great poetry? Where are the giant statues that I know they could build? Where is it? Why are we doing this? Why? Because nobody is willing to be and this isn't a family show as much as the Going Free on Sundays is. So it's because somebody like myself is not willing to be enough of an asshole and say, stop being an idiot to everyone else. And we have to man up, we have to woman up and do the right thing. I want to see artists stepping up like soldiers at the Alamo. That's what I want to see. I want to hear the story of their oppression, of the oppression of our people. I want it told in our verbiage, from our perspective, not as villains in the anti-white narrative. And I think that's really what we're getting at here when we're saying, every song and every painting and every, now granted, you go back and you look at these bands. If you want any tips, because there are people who made it work. They defeated us. Maybe you're not conscious enough to appreciate it, but you can go back and you can see, well, you've got this band or that band, and they made this album, and on this album there were maybe 2 or 3 songs that specifically spoke to the societal condition that as they were trying to advance it in the anti-white narrative. But that's all it took. That's all it took. So they would have an album, there would be 2 or 3 songs, there would be a poet. Not every single piece of poetry would be anti-white, but enough would to get the job done. And I think that's what these two gentlemen are talking about. And then I will speak for myself and speak in service to white well-being, that everything else out there that is taking from these old norms and this villainy role garbage, just stop being a child. It's not Halloween. There's no more dress up time. I mean, if you want to have like the dress up ball or something like that, don't wear that garbage. Get something else and have your dress up parties or whatever it might be. Good for you. If it's, I've gone to the Renaissance Festival and been in garb. Maybe I'll show some pictures of that at some point. I had tights on, so it's kind of revealed. But if you want to do that for fun, then do that for fun. Jared George probably has some as well, probably Jeff as well. If you want to do that kind of thing for fun, then do it for fun. Take these other costumes and set them on fire, gentlemen.
Well, we'll have some more to get to on that. Jeff, of course, feel free to respond, but also I have a question. And it's simply that, have you seen any stories, anything that you can tell us from the artists in White Art Collective, or maybe just people who are fans and involved, who through being involved, you saw them blossom and let go of these meme pathogens that have been caging their minds and become more comfortable with who they are, express what they want to express, maybe even in other areas of their life get healthier, etc. Anything you can think to on that, and or anything Jason's words there just made you think of as you go on?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was inspired by Jason's passion there, and that's part of it too, is just bringing the energy to the table and inspiring people to create with, putting your energy out there. So I appreciate that. And Jason, I agree with you on the idea that the thing is, those regimes of the past, they were in their moment. They did what they did. It was very organic to the people, to the audience they were reaching out to, and the aesthetic, the symbols they chose, all of those things they took into consideration, and that's why it worked in that moment. Like, we have to do, it has to be organic in our moment. I think that's one of the things that never translates for me for some of that, is like, America, as an American, we have our own history, we have our own heroes, we have our own story, and it's like it doesn't make sense to me when people try to push. I get what they're doing, I get why they're saying these things, but it doesn't make sense to try to push that across on everybody, this stuff about these different regimes of the past, the ant-nats as you call them. And it has to be organic from this moment. It has to be organic from the people and from our own cultural, artistic traditions and political traditions. But yeah, and I think too what you said about people putting, like the dialectic of going free into their art. I mean, I am already seeing that. Actually, I know that like For Noel does a lot of great stuff that to me I think is very organic and comes very naturally to him, that I think he's very much internalized in a healthy way the going free ideology and the words that you use in the dialectic, and that comes out a lot in what he's doing. And actually, he and Kandro, another one of our musicians, they just did a collaboration that came out I think yesterday called White Step, which I highly recommend. It's great, first of all, because it's just a great collaboration between two really talented musicians. But there was, I can't remember exactly what the phrase was, but they were dropping some of the white positive dialectic in that tune as well. So that's an example right there. But to Jason's point, Jared's point about people who, there's definitely been people who, like, they've been kind of on the fence about all of this, and they've reached out to me, and they've kind of slowly over time, they'll kind of feel out the waters. They'll come and listen to stuff, kind of lurk in the chats and things, and then eventually they'll finally submit something. And yeah, I've definitely seen some of that. I can't think of like a particular example. I can say that all of this has been very healing for me, as an anecdote, is just having this community, and also me kind of going through these phases I'm talking about. One of the reasons I kind of know about it is because I'm been living it, is like, when I first came to this, I immediately wanted to start talking about all of this because you're not allowed to talk about it, and I wanted to make things that were kind of more explicit and things. And I feel now that, coming on like 4 or 5 years into all of this, that I've really kind of settled in. I've internalized most of the ideas to where I don't have to feel like I'm trying to push anything into the art at all. It just comes out naturally what I create, So I look forward to creating more stuff where I'm just like, one of the things we're working on right now is a show called Starboat, which is one of the most exciting things we're doing right now. It's going to be like, we've actually been developing it for like 3 months or so, back since January, and we've actually written a script. We've developed characters. This is kind of part of the WAC 2.0 thing as well, is that we've built enough of a community who are like-minded enough to where, and we've built the bonds between us to where we can collaborate on a complex thing like this. Sometimes, as you can imagine, when people are like putting themselves out there, like things get a little heated, but everybody are sensible folks because we've got good people in the community, and we're able to kind of get over those hurdles. And ultimately, we're going to produce something really cool and on a more sophisticated level than we've been able to in the past, because we have built that community. We can sit down, let's write a script, let's develop the characters, let's, so and so can do the music, so and so can do this, and it's hard to get to that point, but like we finally are kind of getting to that point, and I think that's where we're breaking through to. But yeah, I kind of answered your question there. I mean, I definitely see some of that. I can't think of like a super shining example where somebody, necessarily was like really was still like had a lot of that going on. Usually by the time they get here, by the time they hear of us, they've pretty much already gone through a lot of that process. But what I would like to do is get us to a point where we are reaching the people that are there, because we should be. It's like we should be the leading edge of this, and that's why I'm trying to figure out how we get outside of this bubble, how, what avenues, kind of like what Jason did on that Jeffrey Daugherty show. I thought that was an absolutely brilliant appearance, because it was people that I wasn't aware of. He's got a pretty good sized viewership. There was like 300 or 400 people watching that just live, and there was a lot of energy around it, I think, because Jason was talking to, he knew he was talking to a lot of people that probably have not quite heard from him directly. At least I think Jeffrey had been kind of introducing slowly some of the ideas that he had gotten out of Going Free, which is great. That's exactly how we want to see it happening, right? He read the book, he started, understanding it and processing it and internalizing it, and then he started sharing it with his audience, and then you went on there to reinforce it. And but it was just great because I think you were really reaching out into whole new territory, and that's what I want to see more of. That's what I want us to do. That's what I know you guys are doing. And Jared, you've done that too, like with that I think there was a poetry magazine probably a year ago or so that published some of your work, and things like avenues like that. I think that's where we need to put our focus, outreach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was in a publication that's quote unquote outside of our spheres, which I've spoken about at other junctures. Just as another thread that relates to what you're saying and ties into everything that we were talking about, especially what Jason was talking about, and then we'll get to some comments, is taking agency away from people. See, that's something I'm really concerned about. I know Jason is as well. Is, as he said, there are people who might, maybe their forte is they want to read a lot of history and they want to look at what we haven't been taught and what's been hidden from us and what's not taught, especially in public schools. And that's fine. If that's really what your passion is, that's great. But the overall narrative and arc within our own thing of acting like you have to prescribe to this certain set, that I really like what you said, Jeff. It organically came out of another time. Now there are certain, I'm someone who talks about symbols and archetypes, so I'd be lying if I sat here and thought that there wasn't anything to the idea that there are general symbols or general approaches that, yes, may wear the dressings of a certain time, but still what's under that is more perennial and something that speaks to our biospirit. Sure, sure. But the overall, that's not really the nuanced conversation that most people are having when we're talking about these ant-nat types, or these types who are just trying to shoot people down or act like you have to be in their little club and dress a certain way and only talk about 3 certain talking points, because that, that becomes, for everyone who thinks we're so open-minded and against the grain, that becomes a trap too. That becomes a trap too. There's almost an NPC, an inverse NPC in our own thing of, you share certain memes, you bring up certain questions, and it's guaranteed applause. And great, pat yourself on the back. Now you're part of a club. This isn't just, this is more than that. Yes, I know people need community. Yes, I know people need to belong. And I don't want to belittle that. But I don't like the cheap laugh lines when I see people getting into this and not realizing the consequences and not thinking it through. And the fact that these kinds of perspectives are limiting them, and they think that they're edgy and they think that they're so against the narrative, but you're not really going to do anything. You're not going to affect the other people out there. This isn't about apologizing or being spineless to our enemies. Anyone that knows me, Jason, Jeff, the people we know and love, that's one thing you cannot accuse us of, okay? This is about outreaching other people. We care about the other people who are hurting, who don't have answers, people who have even contemplated suicide or on drugs and alcohol, or even if it's not as an extreme a situation as that, they're just concerned about their families and what's going on in the world. They're going to be looking for answers, as I said in my opening speech, especially things that maybe aren't even directly related, but are secondary to this, but still extremely important, like the lockdowns and all the strange things going on in the world. There are people looking for answers. So all that to say this, I apologize for taking maybe too long to ask this question. But that kind of club mentality, you have to be in the club, share these certain things, and only look at these past movements, and that's the answer. It gives to me, again, I'm not talking about the nuanced, independent researcher, alt history person that really has a balanced perspective. I'm talking about the people who just get into this and then they're funneled into this little corner of things and think they're doing something. It's very intoxicating. It's very seductive to think that because now you're in this little edgy online community that you're doing something, but you're not doing anything. And in fact, if anything, you might end up hurting you and your family. You might end up exposing yourself to all kinds of unnecessary things. So, Jeff, what I want to hear about is really agency. The hardest thing is to say, of course, we have to be realistic about certain bits we weren't told, and there's a seduction to that. And I understand you want to look at alternative history and all that, but the ultimate pill, and people think that there's a last pill, but I'll tell you what the real last pill is. It's looking in the mirror and saying, it's on us. We're the ones who have to figure this out. You cannot put it outside of yourself, even under these other groups. Yeah, you have to be realistic about friend-enemy distinctions sometimes. No one here would say otherwise. But it comes down to agency. If I have to bring it down to one word, it's agency. And what all of us here do, and what the people here in this community do, are they're taking their own agency into their own hands. Anyone who thinks that nothing here is going on, let me politely correct you. There's all kinds of people here. You don't know their names. They're not content creators. They're not on YouTube. Jason and I featured 4 of them a couple of weeks ago. We're going to be doing more shows like that spotlight people in the community. Jason's certainly been doing it for a while on his own going free streams on Sunday. You don't know their names, but they're doing things in their local communities, whether it's affecting things in a college near them or local politics or flyer campaigns, things like that, legal, but still influencing and getting the conversation into people's heads in their communities. this is a community, our community here, with initiative. So, Jeff, if you can kind of thread everything we've been talking about with the fact that a lot of these other online little communities are really cul-de-sacs, they're dead ends, and they give people a false sense of agency. And you have people here, we're seeing it even tonight, people that are like, no, you guys are being weak, you're being milquetoast. We need to, I guess they think we need to march around in the jackboots. Aesthetically, I wouldn't be here. If this was all suspenders and Doc Martens, I wouldn't be here. So we have to be able to be realistic about that and understand maybe that's just what you like. That's not what my aesthetic is. So we have to be able to, at the very least, if you want to at least be strategic about it, understand that there's a lot of different types of people out there, and maybe your little fashion sense 0.05% of the population's into. Well, if you want to win, you might have to be a little more accepting of people that don't wear suspenders and Doc Martens. But anyway, Jeff, agency, just want to get your thoughts, and then Jason will take us into community comments.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. And the thing that you made me think of was like this phrase occurred to me a while ago: right-wing hipsterism. I see sub cliques like that, because I've been out in the art world, and I've been around these like absurd, tiny subcultures and sub cliques of society where essentially people wear like a costume and they listen to a certain music, there was a time when they had like ironic mustaches, and people even had their mustache tattooed on their finger. I mean, it's gone through so many absurd levels of I kind of feel sorry for them though, because after, I kind of studied that because I've always been fascinated by culture generally. And really it was just people looking to belong, so in light of a lot of people not having like any meaningful identity, that's basically what a lot of those people were doing, is they would go and become part of these sub cliques. And that was a leftist thing. But I see that, since you've brought up the Doc Martens and all that multiple times, I've seen those guys, I've seen the skinheads and the music, and like that strikes me personally no different. It's just like a right-wing hipsterism to me. It's the same kind of thing. It's people trying to find something to belong to fit into, and they kind of wear the same uniform, so to speak, and they listen to particular bands and things. And it's good for them in a very small sense that it makes them feel like they belong. But in the current moment that we're in, and I think they do get the sense that like, oh, this is a big thing, this really matters. But it's like those little sub cliques are tiny in the broader sense. And especially, I mean, people have this like, they scoff at the left-wing hipsters. They definitely, obviously, because of the anti-white narrative and the training, like the right-wing hipsterism is like totally vilified. And it's just, it isn't, that aesthetic is defeated. It's not going to get you anywhere. I know there are probably some good people who've taken that on and who buy into that, but it's just like, it's just basically a way to feel like you belong. But it's a small sub clique that is not ever going to penetrate the broader society. And if that's all that you want, okay, I guess. But I mean, that's not what I want. I want us to win. I want us to retake our destiny. I want there to be a mainstream culture for our own people that is healthy and thriving. And I want us all to be part of that, and I want other people to see things, for kids to be able to watch films and things that really, that they see themselves in, and that have no meme pathogens in them, and on and on. So like, it's just, again, it's just like a form of hipsterism, which is a pejorative, because it's just like you're just stuck in a little world. And even if there's some of these groups, there's thousands of people, you might get thousands of likes on your super edgy meme, but it's like, that is the wall, that's the end of it. It's that little click. It's great that you have it, but it's not going to go beyond that, because that's just, people are programmed so deeply. It doesn't matter how bad things get, you're not undoing that. You're not undoing a lifetime of conditioning with memes or a handful of memes. It's just not how it works. It has to be deeper than that. And back to the point of agency is that it's, we have to build. Western civilization has essentially been successfully deconstructed. That was their goal. It's essentially, been effective. Like, people are super deracinated. They don't have identity. They're just consuming things. They're wandering aimlessly. So what we have to do is build things. It's not just some stupid, vague platitude like go build something positive. Like, it's true. You have to construct something, and it might feel small, whatever you're doing. Just like you said, you have these people in you guys' community, and who are doing all of these things, but they are affecting the world around them, and that ultimately has a larger additive effect to where when we get, now there's hundreds and maybe even thousands of people starting to do those things in these spheres, but eventually it will be tens of thousands of it, hundreds of thousands and millions, and it will matter. That will change things, and it will shift at that broader, higher level. That wave will come. We just have to keep doing the day-to-day work. It's grueling, and we're constantly being censored, and sometimes you're just like, oh God, I don't want to do this. I don't feel like this. But you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other and building things, or helping people who are building things that are genuinely helping people. What you guys are doing is genuinely helping people. It's inspired people. It gives them the tools that they need to get outside of the existing paradigm and not think that they're the bad guy, And there's so many people. I think the other thing too is like we get insulated in our community, kind of like we get this, but there's people out there who just have not heard of this yet, who are struggling. Like you said, people who could be on the verge of suicide, or people, they're out there. I mean, I struggled through my 20s and 30s when I was, when things weren't nearly this bad. So I can only imagine that people now are really struggling, like young men and women who they need direction. And we've got to run that our flag up the pole, the good optics flag, so and just let them know that we're here, and that we've built something for them to be a part of. And one other just thing of that is like something I've thought about a lot is like we have to build things to the point to where they don't just like consume a little thing here or there that we say. We need to build a world that they can live within. They need to basically be subsumed by the stuff, this positive identity stuff, whether it's culture, whether it's businesses they're a part of, because right now they're subsumed by the anti-white stuff, where most people are. It's like what we're doing is still, it's in its early phases, but like we're building, and again, we're reconstructing essentially Western civilization, and people have to be able to live inside of it. So it's, to me, using that high agency to build, that's what we have to do, things, and building things that are going to last. And that's the thing about a lot of these, kind of like the quick edgy joke or whatever. I mean, yeah, some of it's funny or whatever, but like, what are you building that's going to last? Because what was bestowed upon us was built very well. Nothing lasts forever, but like we have a lot to live up to. And they've handed us down the knowledge of how to build, and so we got to get to it and make it happen.
Jason, you there? I think you're muted.
Yes, thank you, brother. That's very well said, Jeff. Fantastic. Absolutely what folks needed to hear. Now, folks, get in your questions now, because we'll be tapping out soon. And any financial gifts you might have, I will be refreshing the screen, and I will speak to some of these statements made by someone who is going by the name Bob without a photograph of his real face. And I'm going to start off by noting that everybody knows my face. They know where I live. They know I live right outside Washington, D.C. and Virginia. And I have been at this for more than 2 decades. And I'm going to keep going for as many decades as the good Lord will grant me to be able to do this. So linemen, you can go down into the description below and you'll see that there is a link for Entropy and a link for Cash App. Thank you very much for the question and the consideration. So let me take a quick look, and so you all can get any financial gifts together as well, and questions. You can put questions in the live stream here on YouTube by tagging me and tag myself and Mr. George, so that it's more likely that we'll see your question or comment. Or you can go over to Entropy and you can add it in the Entropy question widget, and it won't disappear there, it won't scroll off the screen. So it looks like we are blank over on Cash App, so we haven't missed anybody over there as of yet. Over here on Entropy, we have the great Lord Wolfshield, financially gifting $10. Thank you, dear brother. And he asks, I think, a question, yes? When is Jared and Jason going to join us on WAC Karaoke? Mr. George, as the singer of the two of us,
as the singer of the two of us, I have a lot more to lose.
That's true.
Let me know. Let me know when the next one is. Let me know when the next one is. And I'll be putting out my real music again very soon, and then on an actual release schedule I wanted to be on. I didn't mean to lie to anybody, but
no. In fact, I don't think you
have a second. We'll have a second launch.
No, I don't think. I just wanted to speak to that. Actually, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I wanted to speak to that. That you, when you were telling people, and this is how I received it, and I even restated it on a Going Free stream. I think just this tiny tangent for a moment here, and that is, I said that when you said you were going to make a song about a month or so, and I said I think it was on Going Free. So Mr. George has said that he's going to produce a song like every month or so. But that's the aspiration. That's the actual work that goes into these things is much more work than most people realize. And so that's the goal. You want that to be the goal, so that it ends up coming out somewhere close to then. So I don't think many people actually anticipated a song a month, or a month and a half or so. But I think we knew that was, you were setting yourself a goal that you were going to be aiming for, so that they would be a little bit more regular than like once every 6 months.
You're covering for me a bit, and I appreciate it. But no, I need to get back on I don't like what's happened. I have my reasons. No excuses. I'm not going to over-explain it, but you will hear more music soon. But I appreciate it.
And you should both come on to WAC Karaoke. Sure. The point is the sound bad.
The point is to sound bad. Well, then I'm perfect.
Perfect. I've made a fool of myself. I have to many times. It is a lot of fun. Yeah. We'll let Lord Wolfshield reach out to you on the next one. We usually do one about once a month. I think we're due sometime soon.
So, well, all right. We'll talk about this off air. I don't know. I don't know how logistically that would make sense until I move. So
okay.
Keep in mind, I have to record vocals in my car right now, which also I'm not trying to make excuses, but that's what I have to put all of my audio equipment in a backpack, go down to a car, record vocals, and come back and test it. So that alone has added a lot of time into my production. And hopefully when that changes, I'll get closer to that goal you were saying, Jason, of a song about once every 4 or 6 weeks. But go on.
Yes, well, that's what I was genuinely concluding. But let's jump over here to the question widget. Sloth says, Jeff, regarding not telling artists what to do, maybe there are young musicians wanting direction. We need to get a kids WAC program. That's actually a pretty interesting idea. What do you think about that, Jeff?
I think that's a great idea. Actually, something that I would like to incorporate as we continue to professionalize is stuff exactly like that, kind of like a WAC university, actually training people, giving lessons on instruments, painting. Donald Kent's actually done a fair amount of teaching. He's got a really good demeanor for that kind of thing. And so it's like we need, definitely, I think that's something that would just draw a lot more interest and attention toward us as well, because it's kind of one thing to make something. It's kind of funny that, but people like when you can give them like valuable information, like, oh, here's how to mix, here's how you use this program, here's how you play this instrument. I think that that's a really good idea, and something that we need to be thinking about, of how to start incorporating that kind of thing. Everything's just time. Everyone has such limited time. It's like I've had people approach me about, oh, what if I laid out this like class or whatever, and it's like that right there alone is an extensive amount of work. So we're going to aim in that direction, and definitely I agree, like aiming towards helping kids, some kid-oriented stuff to help them get into the arts. That's a great idea. Thanks for that, Slots.
That is a really great idea, and that's coming from a great man, Slots. And we have the great Mestizo here, says, powerful speech, Jason. Say no to ant-nats and cult quacks. Amen to that. No to the ant-nats and the cult quacks, indeed. All right, well, again, waiting for any more questions. I will speak questions or financial gifts. I will speak to these couple of these arguments or questions made by Bob, because they are representative of a small group of people in the of white sympathetics, explicit white sympathetics, and who are doing themselves a lot of harm. And in fact, talking about Mestizo right here, he put up on Instagram, and probably published elsewhere, a meme where the verbiage is what really mattered to me, where it's a newer him coming away from an older him. And he says, the reason why I am saying, I'm going to paraphrase this poorly, and I apologize, but he said, the reason why I guess made this meme, the reason why I'm coming away from this ant-nat nitwittery is because I don't want others to make the mistakes that I made. So he's saying there that he damaged himself as a consequence of going down the ant-nat path. Everybody does. Everybody does. And that's why it was so poignant when we shared the video of this 18-year-old girl, and she's right there on the verge. She's having that moment of pure glory where she's deciding, I'm going to put myself out there for my people. I'm sick of what's taking place in the West. And now she's going to have all that she can see in front of her really is the path of villainy, because she's in the anti-white narrative, and we don't want her to go down that path. So I asked the question, which should have caused pause with that video in everybody's heart, even the hardest core of ant-nats. And that is, what route do you want her to go? Do you want her to go the path of love, hope, and redemption, where she and her family and our people are the good guys in our story, or down the path of the anti-white narrative and be the villain in their story? Because very well, she's got 18, she's got that whole life ahead of her, and there's a whole lot of hell waiting if she goes down the path of the ant-nats. So I will, and I was really pleased the other day, and I'll mention this. Thank you, Euphemia, and it's great to see you here. I want to mention that a great example, I'm not going to mention the people who were doing this, but I will say there was a group of guys on the show, and they had a young man on who is becoming increasingly popular as their guest. And toward the end or the final third of the program, one of the hosts said to him, well, you're still young. You'll learn that you have to focus on the puppies. You have to watch everything. You got to find out all about the puppies. You got to talk about the puppies. I couldn't believe it. My jaw hit the floor. Thankfully, though, my jaw turned into, could you imagine telling a young man or a young woman, take this route that causes people to commit suicide, to go to jail, to lose their right to self-defense, to lose their right to travel, to have their family leave them, to ruin all the relationships in their world, to cause them to get into drugs and alcohol. Could you imagine giving somebody that advice? How much shit do you have to have in your head to give that kind of advice? How much of an absolute demon do you have to be to give that kind of advice to a young person? But it turned to a smile when the young man said they would like that more than anything. And so I'm not going to do it. So God bless him. And maybe we can get him to come over to Going Free and give him a story where he can be a hero rather than some disgusting term in someone else's story. I mean, talk about being a chump that they're trying to advise this guy to go down this path. So we have Bob here, and he represents like I say, a group of white sympathetics that are explicit. And he made a number of statements in the chat, and that's why I should go ahead and speak to some of these. And if I miss any, Mr. George, perhaps you can holler at me. And again, folks, any financial gifts or questions, because once I finish this, whatever's left there, we're going to address, and then we're going to be tapping out and let Jeff get back to his life, saving the world. He's got his cape he's ironing right now, and he's going to get right back into the skies, and in an far more serious way than actual comic book individuals. So a genuine way, the work he's doing, and deeply appreciative of Jeff and everybody over at WAC. So we had Bob say a few things. Now he said, let's see. At one point he said, and this is, I guess, pretty revelatory. The first point I want to make to Bob is that, and Bob, if there's any others of the same mindset in the live chat while I'm here, go ahead and make your argument, and I will address them. I will defeat all of those arguments very easily. I've been doing this for over 2 decades. I have defeated those arguments face to face, over and over and over and over and over again. It's endless. And that is also very telling of the individuals who stick with positions that are defeated by reason, logic, and evidence. So we had Bob reveal. First thing I want to mention, though, is Bob's not showing his face. So that's very important when we have these kinds of conversations. It always must be stated. If somebody is not giving up their identity, then their position always is not nearly as strong as if they were giving up their identity, because it's very easy to sit in the basement of a city in the Middle East and type away, or elsewhere around the world, and type away as a white nationalist or what have you. Specifically to that, Bob says, so white nationalists are bad. Quote, white nationalists are bad. And then he said something like, okay, I get it. Now, I did not mention, unless somebody wants to point out if I was unaware that I mentioned white nationalists. I referred to ant-nats, and ant-nats are people who antiques. It's where this comes from, and it's beautiful. We created that here live on a Going Free. We are creating our language, creating our writing the pages of our victory, one word at a time, one letter at a time, one page at a time, and it's a beautiful thing because we are manifesting that. So when we're talking about ant-nats, we're talking about, oh, and by the way, just so I can mention this, it was during the Going Free stream that I began saying that, look, if your ideology, political and economic ideology that you think is going to win the day today, if you can find it at an antique store, you're going to lose. You're a loser. That's just the bottom line. So, and then I said, this is some kind of antique nationalism. And then Raymond Van Buskirk shortened it to just antiques, which I thought was powerful as well, but only worked with those who knew what we were talking about. And then it was Naderific, I think, who shortened it to ant-nats, which is, I dropped the usage of antique nationalist and then just use ant-nats because that was better. So the ant-nats. So I'm talking about ant-nats, and I just defined what they are. There are various types of ant-nats. And then Bob says white nationalists. So Bob, this is this is the question that I've raised about the term white nationalist and why I have admonished folks to not call themselves white nationalists. If you were to go out onto a street corner and ask people, what's a white nationalist? Just the white people walking by. Or hold up a sign that says that you are a white nationalist and a big arrow pointing to yourself. What might happen to you? Well, Bob's already telling us. People are going to think that you're a Nazi. That's what they think when you say white nationalist. Whether you feel that way or not, or whether you feel that the portrayals are right or not, and people have their lived experience in entertainment, and that's the world that you're going to encounter when you go out there and you call yourself a white nationalist. So Bob is saying that white nationalist means antique nationalists. Okay, I'll agree with you, Bob, and I admonish everyone out there to not call themselves white nationalists. Just think about, again, if you go out onto a street corner and just about any town and city in the West, and you hold up a sign and you say, that's what you are, big arrow pointing down to you, would you be willing to do that? Would you survive the day? Would you have the hell beat out of you? And why would that happen? Why would that happen? So that is the real world that you have to encounter when we're trying to change the minds of our brothers and sisters relative to the recapture of our destiny, because that's what matters. The actual suffering and happiness or happiness of our people. So then he also said, you can't win with grace. You can't win with grace. I thought that was an interesting choice of words as well. So that means in Bob's head that you can only win with violence. What he's saying with grace, and he also later says words, he downplays the power of words, which is really astonishing to be alive today, to be born into a defeated Western civilization, having never seen an army and foreign flags and tanks rolling over the entire West, and say that words are powerless. Really astonishing, I must say. So he says here, he reveals his real position, that it's violence when he says you can't win with grace, because he's talking about words. You can't be good. You can't be loving. You can't be hopeful. You can't redeem. It's got to be violence. So Bob, this is what I say. Maybe you have never heard of the meme curative that when you are outgunned, you lose with arms, but you win with brains. Meme curative. When you are outgunned, you lose with arms, but you win with brains. You will not win, Bob. You will not win with violence. You will go to jail. You will lose your right to self-defense if you are in the United States. You won't even beat the local sheriff. And don't try either. The next thing you said was words do nothing against hypocrites. I guess you were talking about anti-whites are hypocrites. And words can't win. Bob also said, try talking to BLM leaders with your words to win. The words are a worldview, and they're not meant for changing the minds of radical anti-whites. They're meant to empower our people with a story in which there is a moral construct in which they can act in their own self-defense. Now, Bob, you and some of those others out there, ant-nats, white nationalists, you might not be able to understand how that works, but it's already working. Every Sunday, every single Sunday, and throughout the week, we have people giving testimonials of the success for the very first time they've had in their lives, because they're using the lexicon and dialectics of going free. So words do win. And you know what else is not going to win against, you're talking about words don't win against radical anti-whites, like leaders of radical anti-white groups. You know what else is not going to win? Violence. Because if you heard them, oh, the FBI is going to find you, buddy. But they are allowed to hurt you. And then the prosecutors will drop the charges, or they'll overcharge and let them go, or the president and the White House or whatever it'll be will phone the local prosecutors, the DA, and say, we'd like you to drop the charges because they were dealing with a Nazi. They were dealing with so your approach of violence, Bob, and by the way, everything that I'm saying is being watched and listened to by the intelligence community, the whole intelligence community in the United States of America, the most powerful country on planet Earth that has ever existed. Jason. So when you come around and you say, you're not going to be able to win with words, they're smart enough to know what you're saying. It's not just me. I'm not the only one smart enough to know what you're saying in the room. They are too. And have no doubt, they'll be able to find you. So you go ahead and talk about violence, and they're going to put you on a list, and they're going to track you and watch you.
Jason,
so,
quickly,
yes.
It's just interesting to me, too, how some of these types of people, and I really hope Bob is listening if he was saying these in good faith and he's not just a subverter, but it's useful even if he's not because other people think like this, that talking about language, automatically there's this jump to conflating it with all of the spinelessness of other quarters or what people tried in the past. Who said that because we're using language to wake up our own kind, that we're going to go groveling at a Black Lives Matter meeting? How do you get from one to the other? I mean, that's a very
great question.
You're making a huge jump there. And if Bob is here, I'd like to know why you're assuming, like he used the word milquetoast. So there's just this blanket idea of if you're talking about using words and language and narrative and not, I don't know, what is your alternative? Creating a militia, putting a target on your back? I don't know. What are you proposing here? But that it's all the same, that because we're using it for our own people or using it to dismantle, like Jason has done many times, put anti-whites on the back foot or get them to admit that what they want is harm against white people. That's not the same thing as going to some violent anti-white group and saying, let's have a dialogue. Has anyone here seen me, Jason, or Jeff, or any of our friends take that kind of position? Have we ever said that? We've been doing this for years. We have a record of what we do online. Have we ever taken the position of, let's have a dialogue with the leaders of BLM? It's a straw man argument. So please tell me how you got from one to the other. I want to know why people conflate. If we're having a good faith argument, and I'm assuming you have a decent level of intelligence to be engaging with this here, how do you get from one to the other?
Very well said. Yes, it is. Over the years, I've had I cannot tell you how many times I've had people sitting across from me and make this sort of argument, and I think it's because it's just this in most cases where it's not a bad faith argument, not just somebody showing up to be a saboteur. And again, Bob's not showing his face. And that is that there's this just two-dimensional thinking in the minds of most people. It's just that all there is in the world is the anti-white narrative. So if all the choices there are, and remember the brain dichotomizes everything, and I believe because of the two hemispheres. But there's this very simple two-dimensional thinking that, well, it's either violence or it's talking like the conservatives or the Republicans or whatever. Where I get furious with these people is when we show success with our verbiage, which is very different from the anti-whites. And we could talk about, again, the reality that the anti-whites defeated the West with verbiage, with words. When we show that our verbiage defeats the anti-whites and they stick to this position that, well, it's just words. So I think in those cases, there are only a couple of options of the kind of person you're talking to. You've got somebody who is midget wit and they can't get out of the stupid place that they are because of their limitation. I mean, not everybody is 6 feet tall. So they're stuck at whatever they are, 4 foot tall, maybe. And they There is also the issue of people who have wed themselves for so many years, and they have their pride involved and their ego involved, and they can't believe that they're wrong. So they're going to just stick with that former opinion. That's probably most of them. And now, although I think the numbers are creeping up much more, you have like hardcore saboteurs, people who are not going to show their faces, say who they are, or if they do show their face, like this Thomas guy, you have somebody who is almost certainly an asset for the intelligence community, because he would have long since been in jail saying the things that he's been saying, had it been anybody who was not being protected. And we've had it happen here in the United States. People who said, oh no, this person or that person absolutely could not be an asset. And then lo and behold, when they finally get arrested somewhere and they are on trial, and then the federal government comes forward and says, no, you can't do this because he's an asset. So it happens so often. It's happened so many times over the past 2 decades. It is ridiculous. But I'll proceed. Let's see. So they got the words do nothing. And of course, that's incorrect. Then he said, I don't know if it was to me or to somebody else. He said, go fix the voting corruption. Well, we have said many times here that the recapture of our destiny is not going to be in voting or violence. So what he again is revealing there is you're not going to be able to fix the problems with voting. And so therefore, ergo, violence. So Bob, I mean, you're really getting yourself, again, the intelligence community, the whole intelligence community is now leadershiped by people who say that the biggest threat, and they deep in their bones hate Western kind. The biggest threat to Western civilization are white people who aren't radically anti-white. So you're really digging yourself a hole. Nobody should be listening to Bob's advice. He then said also that this is obviously why you are talking to me while I'm obviously still on YouTube. Well, Jared and I'm not even going to, this is an argument that I've seen some other ant-nat nitwits make as well, maybe over the past 6 months or so. One of the reasons why this particular channel is still up is because we don't play the villain at all. There isn't a point that in anything that we say, at no point are we focusing on another race of man or another religion and saying that this group of people or that group of people is the problem, because we don't believe that other groups of man or other religions are the problem. The problem is anti-white ideology, anti-white actions, and people of all races and all religions practice all of those. So we at no point have we ever made disgusting racial epithet riddled jokes or anything like that. Why? Because we don't like them. They're not our character. We've had people say here, well, you should go over to D Live so you can speak your mind. We are speaking our mind. This is the way we actually feel. Now, having said that, we still have this channel because we're not the villain in the anti-white narrative. We have both lost channels, you idiot. We have lost more platforms than your favorite content producers. That I guarantee you. I was just kicked off Linktree. We have been censored off numerous financial platforms. We just don't whine about it all day like your favorite content producers do. We just march forward. I gave them a promise that every time they censored me from a platform, I'd get back on 2 more. And then I'd get back on the one they censored me from. And I've done my damnedest to keep that promise. So that's why we are still here. And that's why we will still be around, even when they continue to censor us off of this or that platform. Then he says something about, I didn't know if I don't think he's still here, but something about 2 more weeks, trust the plan. And then he said, he spoke about, and these are the last 2 things. And then I've got one thing specific for, so it's actually 3 things. That 3rd thing is something specific I want to say to Bob and those of Bob's mindset. And that is, he talked about Pierce. And he said, so you're smarter than Pierce. Well, I'm afraid you don't know William Pierce as well as you think, Bob, because Pierce spoke relatively often about wanting to get rid of the cranks, wanting to build a community out of ordinary white people. Pierce would be delighted with the work that I am doing. We would still have disagreements, and where his endeavors and his mindset deviates from my morality, I would object to what he's doing. And there were plenty of those scenarios between the two of us, what he thought and what he focused on. But he wanted normal people. He said repeatedly, we want professional, ordinary white men and women, because that is the only way we are going to be able to build a community that lasts. And you know what? Pierce failed at doing that. And one of the reasons he failed is I will get back to in one moment, Bob, and I want you and those like you to listen closely. The next thing is Rockwell, he said, defeated some argument, and I don't know what argument you're talking about when it came to Rockwell, but I can say this, because apparently, again, Bob, your knowledge of Rockwell is pretty damn limited. Rockwell said in his break from Pierce that he was going to wear the uniform and fly the flag only as long as he needed to get attention. And then he said, once he has the attention, once the public knows who he is, by the way, he was a big-time showman, and that was the reason he went that direction. Once the public knows who he is, he's going to take off the uniform and put down the flag. And guess what he was doing when he got murdered? Guess what speeches he was giving? He was giving speeches in suits, Bob, in suits, not in a uniform, when he was murdered. So apparently you didn't understand either Pierce or Rockwell very well. So back to Pierce, and my final thought, and I'm going to check with Jared George has something as well.
On Rockwell, I believe what he meant, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I was watching the chat at what he was responding to as you were speaking, and I believe what he was saying that Rockwell dismantled is that we can do this through art and narrative and culture and everything we've been talking about tonight with Jeff.
Well, that's preposterous, because that's exactly what Rockwell, he was an artist. He was a cartoon. He made the cartoon about the ducks and the chicken. I mean, that's preposterous. That is a preposterous statement, Bob. I mean, that's a flat out lie. That is a flat out lie. Either you're just ignorant or it's a lie.
And he was saying things in that same idea that this has been tried before. Now, I'm not saying, and I don't have the knowledge that Jason has. I know that not just the Doc Martin suspenders bans, like I said before. I know that there's been movements to create literature and art. But Jason, you tell me, because I've heard you say things to this effect. And yes, it's partly the fact that we are blessed to live in the internet age, as much as the internet could be a two-edged sword. But you have said, and maybe you can elaborate on this in light of Bob's comments, that you have never seen an organic culture and community and thriving music scene with all kinds of genres, popular arts genres that people can relate to, kinds of music people already listen to, that has gone on in decades past. What I got from Bob is that he was saying that this has been tried before, that what we're doing is nothing new, and that we basically are kind of fooling ourselves in thinking that this is some kind of a watershed moment.
No, that is absolutely, if that was Bob's position or any of these other explicit white sympathetics position, they are absolutely incorrect. Nothing like this has ever been done before. Everything prior to what we are doing in service to white well-being was created from the top down. They tried to have like a corporation, and they tried to do it on shoestring budgets, and they had the personnel that they had were the kind of people who wanted violence, and nothing like this whatsoever. I argued for many years that the only way that it could be successful on many different levels, that the recapture of our destiny could be successful on many different levels was if the organization wasn't centralized or even decentralized. It had to be distributed. It had to be a distributed network, because the anti-whites have already demonstrated repeatedly that they know very well how to destroy centralized and decentralized networks, period. You know what's happening right now to Bob and all the, and I see these others from this ass person, and I'll speak to those as well. Right now what's happening is the intelligence communities who are listening from around the world, the US in particular, they're laughing that I am, in that Jeff and Jared here are surrounded by these imbeciles who keep trying to run everything we're doing into the ground. They are laughing because they know, they're saying, holy shit, what they're talking about and what they're growing is real and genuine and is difficult to knock down, is difficult to infiltrate, is difficult to lead into dead-end alleys. What they're cheering for people like Bob is what they're doing, so that they can advance their careers. So here's the thing, nothing like this has happened before, and we will continue to grow it. But here's the reason why Pierce failed at making an organizational entity, or one of the main reasons why he failed, and why it has been such an uphill struggle for me. Now, one of the things that undermined Pierce, that doesn't undermine me, is that I don't have the focus in the wrong place. Pierce had the focus in the wrong place, period. His focus was in the wrong place. We have the focus in the right place, and we have many more tools on our side. But the one thing Pierce and I share in common, why he failed and why it's such an uphill struggle for me, is because assholes like Bob and maybe this ass still, whatever his name is, are a headwind, are an incessant headwind, undermining everything we do, misrepresenting everything we do, slandering us everywhere we go, applauding only if you are going to make a fool out of yourself as a costume ant-nat nitwit dipshit. That is why. That is why Pierce, that's the one thing Pierce and I share in common. He failed because of you all, you ant-nat idiots. And I'm having such a difficult time because of you ant-nat idiots. None of you showing your faces. None of you on video. None of you showing your faces. None of you coming to any meetings. In the old days, they had a lot less, their tongues were a lot sweeter in person. I can tell you that for sure, because online, they know they can hide in the city in the Middle East or wherever they're hiding, or London or New York or wherever it is that they're hiding in the basement, while their mother bangs on the door and says, a 30-year-old son, it's time for you to come and get your dinner. They can hide. And that's all they do. And then they go out to these other communities, as many as they can, and say, well, Pierce believes this or Pierce believes that, and so you shouldn't support him. It was his entire, this is why Pierce hated you all at the end. Do you not get it? This is why he hated every single one of you. This is why he didn't properly set up a succession, because he was sick of you bastards. He was sick of it, and he wanted nothing more than to go. And that's exactly what he did. That is why we have such a hard time growing White Wellbeing and going free. How many people, I think it was even Groundhog Fury maybe, there have been several notable people who said that they heard of us, they came and watched one show or this show, they thought it was good, but then they were hearing from everybody else all of these ant-nats about how awful we were, how we were just conservatives, how we were alt-light and all this other garbage. Nothing but lies.
Or a cult.
Or cult, precisely.
Listen, I'm like the least bit of a joiner. It's amazing.
Well, no, the thing that's really despicable.
Here. Like if Jason was pressuring me to do or say things, if this was a cult, he'd be calling me up and saying, Jared, you should really write the next song with these lyrics. It's so, that's ludicrous.
No, in fact, we invite people to leave. And that's the opposite of a cult. We say, if you don't want to use the verbiage and the dialectics that are successful, you want to continue these deleterious roles, then please go away. We will be here. And when you are ready to grow sociopolitically and mature sociopolitically and be a good person, then we will welcome you back to heal and to be redeemed.
And Jason,
until then, just go.
At least as important or more important, you invite people to lead. All of the people I talked about earlier, cult of dopamine hits. Yeah, okay. All of the people that we were referring to earlier, I said we had a show with 4 gentlemen a few weeks ago, a community spotlight tap, and we'll be doing a lot more of those. They're not content creators, they're not YouTubers or D-livers or whatever the next live stream is, live streaming platform next week. Starting schools, Brand Danger, starting an online homeschool resource. I mean, that's just one example of hundreds of people that are taking the mantle themselves. That's the opposite of a cult. I hope, Artificer, cult of dopamine hits, that you were being ironic there. Because if you think this is just online dopamine hits, maybe it's your first time here. I'll give you one mulligan. But you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Excuse my English. If that's what you think's going on here. Yeah, we're pissed off. Jason and I have been observing things and holding in a lot. There's a lot of people, you want us to have certain guests on. There are guests that don't respond to us because there's all kinds of weird rumors that go on about us, spread about by idiots like this. Yeah. So we're taking a stand, and we're going to be our own poll, and we're going to have the best people come to us.
Precisely. And we have already done, and that's a great point Jared makes there, that we invite people to become their own centers of gravity. Jeff Winston is a great example. Brand Danger, great example. There's so many great examples of people becoming their own centers of gravity and making it happen in the world to recapture our destiny. You are known by the fruits that you produce. That's how you're known. You're not known by a DNA exam that can easily, the results easily faked on screen, as though being pure white makes it impossible for you to be anti-white. We see it all over the world. The results that you get, the fruits that you bear in service to white well-being, that determines who you are and what you do. Not whether or not you have a specific uniform. That is the definition of a cult, is you have to think one specific thing. You have to have one specific leader that you laud, or you have to have one specific this. That's a cult. That's what all ant nattery is. Nothing. That's a giant cult. And the another characteristic of a cult is when people don't behave that way, they get relentlessly attacked by the cult. And that's exactly what the ant nats do to us, is the relentless attacks and the misrepresentation and leading people away. So just so the ant nats.
I don't want to cut you off. I had to make a quick correction. So the spirit of what I said, of course, is true. But Artificer, that commenter himself, assuming it's a guy, actually is on our side and was saying that the dopamine hits is the people who are spewing hate. So
gotcha.
Anyone listening in the replay, Artificer did not say anything wrong. So they're addicted to hate. He's clarified. So I wanted to correct the record.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Or Artificer, however you're supposed to say it, but go on.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And this has been maybe in a way, a bit of a watershed tap because we are yet again putting our foot down in the middle of people suffering bibs and are going insane with bibs, and in the middle of an obvious hell of a lot of crypto ant nats out there spreading the misinformation, the lies, the misrepresentation to make it harder on us to succeed in service to white well-being. And that's why Pierce hated you all. And when he died, when he passed on, It's not unknown by any means. He was sick and tired of this sort of nonsense, and I'm sick and tired of it. And I invite you, when we do have get-togethers, when we do have conferences, in any of these actual they'll never show up. They'll never show up in face-to-face. For one thing, if they're crypto anti-nats, well, then they're anti-white, so they'll be identified easily right away, and they're not going to show up. And if they're actual nats, then when you say the kind of things that you have been saying about a man, just about a man, not even undermining, where I really get furious, is when you undermine the good that we are doing for the people out there, changing people's lives, turning their whole lives around 180 degrees, and their lives are getting better. When you undermine that, a fury erupts inside of me. And if you want to come and get a face-to-face conversation about that and tell me how you would like to undermine more of the good work that we're doing for people, turning lives around, saving lives, you want to come and talk about that in person, let's do it. Let's do it, because I'm very happy to have that kind of a full contact conversation. A lot of tickling there, a lot of tickling. So we have here ask the question. So, I mean, should I read this like the snarky divide and engender infighting way that it was written? So, the National Justice Party and the Patriotic Alternative are ant-nats, or what? Is that what you're asking, ass? Is that really your question? Is the National Justice Party and the Patriotic Alternative, are they ant-nats or what? Well, I'll first speak to the Patriotic Alternative, which I spoke at. I guess it was their second conference, which they all told me after being there as their keynote speaker, that really felt like their first conference, because it was a real conference, real things were talked about, real progress was made, and there was not a single conversation that I had, that I was even privy to, of anything whatsoever that resembled the ant-nat nitwittery. These were our people who are concerned about the UK and the totality of all of the ethnicities that are present on those isles of our people, and they wanted to come out in love and support and endeavor in love to bring light to what's happening and to potentially reverse what's taking place in that country by way of a political means, but even before a political means, by way of a communal means, because they knew very well that they might not get the opportunity to be even a political party. And as we can see, I think they've been denied 3 or 4 times. And so they might never be a political party. It may be a communal endeavor from start to hopefully victory for our people on those islands. So that's what, in my association and in where I have contacted Patriotic Alternative, that it has meant, and as far as I know, will always mean. So asking whether or not that's ant-nat is bad faith. Now, National Justice Party are ant-nats. They are proudly antique nationalists. They crafted their symbol after another ant-nat party in Germany. That, by the way, just for those who aren't aware of it, it came out in government documents years ago that party is run by the German government. So it's full of the intelligence community, that party in Germany. Now, National Justice Party, they are proudly antique nationalists. As far as the leadership goes, as far as they have a document, a founding document, that is the exact same number of points as the Nazi document, and some of the points are identical. So are you seriously asking if they are ant-nats? I mean, seriously? At their gatherings, they use the Roman salute. Are you seriously asking if they are? Now, and let me ask you this. Are you a member of the National Justice Party? Because if you are, then you've gone to their gatherings. You have Heiled Hitler and Mussolini. You've said that out loud. You've Roman saluted. Could you do that on a street corner? And does that not fit perfectly the definition of the antique nationalism? I mean, for God's sakes, they had a band playing 1980s, 1990s skinhead music. And they had a mosh pit. And they were dressed in the band was dressed in the red suspenders and everything, right out of the skinhead movement of the 80s and 90s, which was how beneficial to the well-being of our people. More songs about murdering and hurting innocent people and focusing on other groups of people and being threatening and being vicious. And then you know what all that did? It hoovered up a lot of good people who then ruined their lives and went to jail for decades. The jails are still full of people who were good until they were hoovered up into that nonsense. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Those who are in some way associated with or affiliated with or support in some way the National Justice Party, but who personally are not endorsers of antique nationalism, where they care, where they're white sympathetic, and where their morality aligns with mine, I support those individuals and support their individual efforts. But where their morality departs from mine, I do not support them. And where they are happily and wonderfully supporters of ant-nat nitwittery, I absolutely object. And what if I said, I've said nothing about these people. When they first created their party, and it's actually not a political party, just for if people keep saying it's a political party, it's not. You can look it up. They are not a political party. They're a club. Perhaps they aspire to be a political party, and good for them. Good luck. They're not going to be allowed to be a political party, or if they ever do get to be a political party, they'll never be allowed to run successfully in any elections, because the Republicans and Democrats will work together to destroy them. But in the very beginning, I gave some of my concerns about what they were doing. The fact that they were mirroring this party in Germany, which I knew very well about, and who runs them, and the fact that there is law enforcement intelligence community throughout that, the fact that several things I mentioned, just warnings, just concerns I had, and that I otherwise endorsed, as I said here, where they were white sympathetic and their morality aligned with mine. And what did they do in return? They ended up telling Mark that they wouldn't work with me, or they wouldn't work with Mark if I was on the show. And then they ended up, and I have people, I don't know how many times I have been sent clips, maybe 5, maybe 8, I don't know, of them specifically mocking and ridiculing me on their shows. For what? Because I had a concern? Because I shared some concerns about what they were doing? And then weren't my concerns, didn't they end up being justified with 1980s, 1990s skinhead music and heiling Hitler and Mussolini and saying those words? So wasn't I right? I just had a couple concerns that ended up being correct. And now they have been endeavoring to destroy, to mock, and to ridicule. And now you can look into chats and you can see people repeating the same sort of garbage that makes it difficult for us to do good, tangible things for real people, their lives, because of these assholes. How many more clips am I going to be sent? So finally, there's now a clip that they can be sent. So I waited until I received 5, 8 clips, whatever it was. I was at a lunch and I received a clip with some people and I played it. And they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. These people behind their paywall mocking and ridiculing me when I had done nothing to undermine them. Well, now they've got a clip back. So the people who are yelling out Heil Hitler and doing the Roman salute, they are undermining the work that we are doing, that is transforming the lives of individuals, testimonials all week long coming in, people sharing them on their own media, 8 people's lives taken back from suicide. And actually, I'll just go ahead and reveal that it's 9. And the one person doesn't feel brave enough. He only felt brave enough to tell me privately. He's not brave. He hasn't reached that point where he feels like he can say it to the whole community, because getting to the point that you're so weak that you're going to kill yourself is something that is embarrassing, obviously. So those 8 that came forward, it's a magnificent thing, a heroic thing that they did. But there's no secret that these people are, I was proven right, no secret that they're ant-nats. And now, so the concerns I had when I said, you're gonna make sure that these young men that get involved, you're gonna make sure that they are, if you all remember this, where I said on the show, you're gonna make sure that they don't get in trouble, right? You're gonna watch out for their lives. You're gonna make sure they don't end up in jail for the rest of their lives, right? Oh yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Yeah. So I came on my stream and said, I hope they do the right thing, and I hope they look out for people who are participating. Well, are you looking out for people when you have them in a room and everybody is listening to skinhead music from the live band, and you have everybody heiling Hitler and Mussolini? Is that looking out for the young guys in your midst? Pieces of shit. So yeah, they want to make more comedy. They want to do more to undermine me and the good we're doing for white well-being. I'll end with this, and I think Mr. George has something else here. I'll end with this, and I'm going to share this on Sunday as well. If there were a doctor's practice, and there were a half a dozen doctors at this practice, and it had a tangible location, and that practice decided that they were going to provide medical care for minor things, not the big things like we're doing and we've accomplished, but for minor things, minor medical health care for white people who don't have health insurance. That's what they were going to do. So white people could show up, they got the flu, they could get some treatment, they got a sprain, they could get some ice bag and ace bandage. White people getting treatment who otherwise would not get treatment. But the head of the practice says, although we're going to do this for white people, no one can work here who is an ant-nat. No one can work here who praises ant-nat nitwittery or who is an ant-nat in their private life. It's prohibited. If such a doctor's office like that existed, if such a practice existed, I contend that mature, rational people who have come to the conclusion after study that they think the best form of government is nationalism and the best form of economy is socialism, and therefore they call themselves national socialists. I think ill-advised, but they call themselves that, coming to it through a mature study and a mature opinion, a mature place. Those kind of individuals, they might disagree with the decision of the doctor's office. They might disagree, but they would never endeavor to destroy it. These ant-nats that we see here they endeavor to destroy that which aids white people, that which benefits white people. They would go to this office and burn it down and spray paint swastikas on it, because ultimately they hate the white race. Because they hate themselves and they hate other groups of people. Their only desire in life is to destroy and to harm. So either they're going to be genuine at-nats who are so embroiled in self-hatred and hatred of the puppies that they would go and burn down a doctor's practice that's helping white people who don't have health insurance, or they're anti-whites, and it would be a hate hoax of sorts, who would show up to burn down the doctor's practice, who is merely providing free medical treatment for white people who don't have health insurance. We benefit people in service to white well-being in incalculable ways, larger than springs on their knees. I just had a guy right before going live saying that for the first time in 3 years, he's going back to the gym, and for the first time in his life, he's giving up smoking because of going free. And these people want to destroy me. The ones who want to Sig Heil Hitler at their private meetings want to destroy me and the good work that we're doing. Go to hell. Let's see. What else did we have?
Hey, can I make a comment?
Please, Jeff.
Yeah, I just want to say that, so, I've worked with some people in those spheres, and I think that there's some good individuals in those spheres that have good intentions. And if anybody wants to further discuss this, whether it's privately or publicly, just talking about this kind of like this optics, it's more than just optics, it's ideology, it's how we're really like reaching out to people in general. And, I have seen, I saw a lot of that vitriol towards you and what you're doing. I think that video that you made was an interesting one, an interesting critique about the NJP. And, I think having this open dialogue of being able to critique each other is an important thing, an important part of, what we white folks do, is to have this open debate. But I just wanted to make it, put it out there that I would be happy to further discuss with any of the people from that sphere, whether again, like privately or publicly, to discuss any of that stuff and what I think is a better strategy and those kind of things. But just want to make that clear.
Well, I appreciate that, Jeff. Yeah, and it's, I'll just state again that I have not endeavored, everything I said about my concerns about the NJP are true. Excuse me. They are ant-nats. They do Heil Hitler. If they're getting nervous right now at hearing me reveal to the world that they Heil Hitler and they say that, then that is an admission of my argument being right. I mean, for Christ's sake. I haven't misrepresented them. I haven't smeared them as they have smeared me. They have taken to their airwaves numerous times to smear me, to mock the different sayings that we have, for the purpose of undermining the work that we are doing. Like children, that's what they have done. And my concerns that I had, are these people going to jeopardize lives? Are they going to lead people into trouble? And it's all, I had concerns. I asked questions. I didn't smear them. I haven't said that they're all law enforcement. I've done nothing of the sort. I haven't made a bunch of jokes out of their different slogans or their badges or whatever it is that they're doing. I've done none of that. None of it. So, clearly, there is right and honorable people looking at this situation will be able to clearly discern where they belong. And the reality is, and I think for a lot of the ant-nat groups out there, that the only talented people that they had in their midst are deciding to leave and to go free. That's their problem. That's not mine. But that's my opinion on. I just acknowledge what they do, and if it needs to be kept a secret, fellas, if it needs to be a secret, then you shouldn't be doing it, right? If you can't do it on the street corner, if it needs to be kept a secret, then it shouldn't be done. I haven't been saying it, but you know what? I mean, maybe today, maybe this is serendipitous, honestly, because that this has come up, and Jared George has put this on the table, because maybe some young man out there is on the verge of ruining his life by hailing Hitler and getting on the video or photographed or whatever it might be by some undercover individual who has snuck into the midst and has developed a reputation for being one of the boys or whatever it is. And that individual is going to have his picture taken, and then it was going to be plastered everywhere soon enough at his universities. And how many more people do we need to see kill themselves because their lives have been ruined for this? And now it's much worse, because now it's the entire intelligence community. They're not going to it's not just going to be a bunch of social pressure and social lynching that leads people to a ruined life and committing suicide. It's going to be the terrorism task force from the FBI, which, by the way, folks, is showing up at homes all over America. People are losing their right to fly. They're losing their right to travel. They're losing their right to self-defense. And you got to wonder, why are some of these ant-nat groups around the world, why aren't they talking about that? Why are they just saying, no, you really should be saying all of these horrible things? I got to tell you, the Australian, and this is, I'll pass it to Jared. We got to wrap up. I'm going to take a look at but I got to tell you, and I see the intelligence community in Australia has to be the worst intelligence community on planet Earth, because this Thomas character is such a joke. He is, you guys, I don't know if you're listening right now, Australian IC, but you are imbeciles. Everyone can see this guy glowing from Jupiter. Are you kidding? In your country where you are not even allowed to say the tiniest thing about another race and about a non-white race, and you're going to have this guy standing out in some desert, burning crosses and chanting KKK, and then Roman saluting and everything else under the sun, claiming that he tried to personally recruit the mass murderer from Christchurch and praising that mass murderer. You people are idiots. And anybody who follows that is stupid. Stay the hell, for everybody out there who's not sure, stay as far away from that as you can, because every single person who praises, agrees, endorses, they're taking your names down. And it might not be today, but they're not going to forget who you are. And if we do not change the context in which this conflict takes place, and you do that by way of language and dialectics, if we do not change the context, then the day will come when they come for you. And that will be the end. So let's see if we have Mr. George while I take a look. Go ahead.
My frame on this is very simple, and I've told you this before privately. No one wants to accuse people and make assumptions, but essentially, if any kind of public voice or in a private chat room, even if it's on Telegram, which is encrypted, okay, is telling you, encouraging you to do and say things that a plant would want you to do, that an agent of the anti-white regime would want you to do, what does it matter if they're a plant or not? If it's going to get you to the same place, maybe this road takes you here and the guy was a plant, and this road takes you here and the guy, maybe he wasn't a plant, but he was very misguided. If it ends you in the same place, that person is virtually a plant, virtually a subverter. What's the difference? Why are you going to listen to people? Why are you going to give your precious time and energy to people that are going to lead you somewhere that a subverter would lead you to, that a plant would lead you to? People here aren't that stupid. We're trying to help the people who might not have this wherewithal, or they're new to the whole thing, so they don't have their bearings yet.
Well, I got to say, it's been a great tab. It's been a watershed tab. This is a very important issue, and what's going to happen right now, I'll go ahead and predict. The IC community, the intelligence community, they're going to be taking. These are going to be the crypto ant-nats. They'll be taking snippets of the show, and then they're going to run over to, pardon me, they're going to run on over to these other groups of ant-nats around the world and fire them up. It's like these memes, these cartoons. It's the agent has got the sword at the back of the activist saying, go ahead, do something horrible. That's what they're going to be doing now. They're going to be taking clips out, and they're going to be running on over to NJP. They're going to run over to all of these different groups around the world and say, oh, go after them now. Go look at what they said. They criticized you. Go after them now. And of course, their own agents will be as functioning as crypto ant-nats will be doing the same thing. But this is these are things that had to be said. And I have finally said something negative now about the leadership, specifically those at NJP who have been smearing me for months and undermining the good work that I do for white people. They are assholes. And if they don't like me calling out their childishness, then they should stop behaving like children. It's that simple. Stop behaving like children. I had concerns about you all that ended up being true. So what's the problem? Over here on Entropy, we have Jesse, no offense. Hello, sweet lady. Financially gifting $30, 30. Thank you so very much. $30, she writes here, for Jeff to say, go free with Jason Köhne. White positivity, baby, in his Adam Sandler impression. I don't know. Can you actually do an Adam Sandler? And if so, are you willing to say go free with Jason Köhne?
Yabadoo, tally, hoo hoo. No, I don't do I can't say all that. You get it. There's only certain words that work with the Adam Sandler, but sorry, that's all you
Watch
get.
out, they'll cut this out. They'll cut this part out.
And they'll be like, oh, all they do is talk about Adam Sandler and the JQ.
He must be friends with Adam Sandler.
Oh, yes. Exactly.
He was funny once in the 90s, but that was a long time ago.
Oh, wait, did you just say something positive about someone from that background? You must be an infiltrator, Jeff.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because it's all about them.
Yes, it's all about
us. It's not about us. We're only in reaction mode. That's being a leader. That's having agency.
Wayne Skelly.
If you want to hear the full Adam Sandler, you'll have to go and watch WAC Karaoke, which I think she has probably tuned into WAC Karaoke, but I'll give you some more Adam Sandler next time.
Subtle ad for WAC Karaoke.
So he's going to, Jeff is going to practice his Adam Sandler. And in the future, he'll be able to just do Adam Sandler for anything you might want to hear from him. Thanks, Jesse. And we also have Wayne Scully, $5 financial gift. Have a great evening, gentlemen, and everyone else. I enjoyed the show yet again. Well, thanks so much, Wayne. Thanks for being around. You're always here, a good brother. Sloths, also another great champion, $6 financial gift. Thank you, dear brother. And he writes only this. Thumbs up. Amen to that. And thank you. And Jesse No Offense is back again with another 30. Let's get a big round of applause for Jesse No Offense, ladies and gentlemen. Raucous emojis, a $60 total financial gift.
Wait. We're shills now. We got some money.
That's right.
Yeah, because I can pay my rent splitting $60 three ways with Jeff and Jason here. We're obviously grifters. Look at this. Jason made some strong speech, and now people gave us a little bit of money. Oh man, that only gets reinvested back into all this anyway.
Right, exactly.
We're grifters. We're grifters, man. Living the high life. You know, I just put a second Lamborghini in my garage from all these super chats that we get from the like
a photograph
in super chats I get. Yeah.
A photograph you took of one you put in the garage.
I'm not saying, by the way, obviously we're making fun of the people that give us a hard time, as we should. As we should hit back a little bit after all this time that we've been very patient. Clearly, we appreciate every dollar and every cent that you're sending our way, and it is put to good use.
Yes.
This is not at all against the people who generously donate. You know, we have nothing but love for you. Well, then again, look, he's trying to get more money.
Oh God, there's no escape.
Third Lamborghini. I wanted a yellow one. I wanted a red. I couldn't decide between red and yellow, so I got both. Jason.
Oh boy,
super chat money. I'll see you in San Tropez. We're gonna first.
I know another
June, guys. We're gonna have a week where we can't do tap, and we're not gonna tell you why, but it's because Jason and I are traipsing around on a yacht in the south of France with models.
Yeah,
that's where it all goes. That's where it all goes.
Well, we have. Jessie writes here with her second $30 financial gift. I love tap and this topic. You guys are amazing. Well, many thanks to you, sweet sister. Thank you so very much. Those are very kind words, and at a challenging time in history. And I'm going to do this. Actually, just made me think of this, and then we will. I think we are blank over on Cash App.
No, you have something on Cash App.
It says yes. All right. Well, let me check on my phone because it might not be.
I'll message you on the side.
Yeah, I don't see it there. I will pull it up here. But this is what I want to do since specifically I spoke about
well, if you need a minute, maybe Jeff can tell us what he does with all of his super chat money. Are you a Ferrari guy or a Lamborghini?
Oh, geez. No. It looks
I'm
like
a Bentley guy. Bentley.
Sports.
Yeah. Aston Martin.
The new sports car.
I want to get into the British sports. I always love British racing green. Anyone who follows my Instagram might know that. So it's nothing to get an Aston Martin.
Jared, copy the message, I guess, and share it over the private chat.
I think it's all right for me to say. It's one of our mods, Zero Talon, wanted to weigh in and send Cash App, and he said a while ago that he sent something on Cash App. Zero, if you're in the YouTube, if you can maybe give us an update.
Yeah, let us know if it went through on your end, because it's not showing on desktop or on the app on the phone as of yet. But we've got a couple more minutes before we tap out. We're here at the end, though, folks. It's been way over the end, but I guess it is an important topic and a watershed moment. And I'm going to say right now, before I pass it over to Jeff to get his final thoughts, and so he can tell folks where they can find him, I'll just say this. Since we did talk about the NJP, I will call on them, because the leadership right now of the NJP to put an end to the incessant, or whatever it was. Was it 8 times? How many? I've had your audio of ridiculing the different things that we say here, and the practice of going free. Calling on you right now to, number one, put an end to it. We're doing good things for white people all around planet Earth. And if you want to destroy the good that we are doing for white people all around planet Earth, then continue ridiculing, continue mocking. I'm calling on you to put an end to that. And 2, I'm calling on you to tell your community to put an end to it, so that there is, you prohibit it in your community, the attacking of the practice of go free in this entire community, and the good that we're doing to put an end to it, so that any of these ant-nats out there who are attacking us will be in a position of shame if they continue, because their very own organization in the United States, the NJP, is saying that no, it's a shameful thing to attack Going Free and White Wellbeing because we actually are doing good things for people. Now, the reason I'm calling on you,
never told anyone here to attack anyone or even act in, with less decorum than you would face to face with someone in real life. We've never even indicated anything in that direction.
Yes, and it just said Cascadia Patriot says they should stop and they should tell their people to stop. Well, precisely. So there's no mystery. We know it's happening. You should absolutely stop, and you should tell your people to stop, and you should make it shameful, an act that is shameful to engage in, so that all of these others who are either legitimate ant-nats or crypto ant-nats will be shamed out of the community for attacking us. The only reason that they are able to undermine and misrepresent the good work that we are doing on the scale that they do it is because you are encouraging it, both with your silence about it being done and with your actual jokes and with your actual statements. So number one, I call on you to put an end to those things, the ridicule, because we are doing good for people. And number two, I call on you to demand that everybody who is a fan of yours, that they stop as well, and that if they continue, then they are in the wrong and not welcome. Because if it continues, it's going to continue with you all condoning it. And therefore, just like that doctor's office out there that is providing free medical care for white people, you will be partly responsible for it being ruined and then unable to do good for white people. Having said that, I will pass it over to Jeff to get his final thoughts on any part of the show today.
Well, this was a doozy, and I appreciate, in a good way, I appreciate your passion. And I just want to say again that I've worked with people from that community, and I would like there to be some kind of a coming to the table, just like what you're talking about, for people to have, whether a public discussion or a private discussion, or maybe a combination of both, because I think that too often too much is talked about in public. But maybe something like that could happen, because I have questions too. And I think that the video that you made about, critiquing some of the things that they were doing, I think there were some valid concerns. And I mean, rather than people just getting upset about that, maybe we could all come to the table and have a discussion, and I would like to see more of that, of more meaningful public debate on that issue, because I think it is, I think people feeling this pressure of all this, the anti-whiteness that's happening right now. We kind of talked about this earlier. They think that means that everybody's going to just suddenly lose their conditioning, and they're going to just, they're going to start Sieg Heiling or whatever. And I just don't think that that's how this is going to happen, or it doesn't make sense. That still doesn't connect with people. I don't think that's ever going to land with people. They're so conditioned, it doesn't make sense to them. This is a different place and time. This is a different people that we're dealing with, and every nation has their own circumstances, And anyway, there's a lot to be said about that, and I think it deserves its own deep dive public airing, so that there can be and not just like a back and forth insult personal thing, because that's kind of what ends up happening, is these communities go back and forth. And I've seen a lot of the vitriol they've had towards you, and all I've seen from you is it's a critique, and again, I think it was a fair critique. So it would be nice if we could have people come to the table perhaps and have a more meaningful discussion about it. But anyway, and I would be happy to participate in that if anyone wanted me to, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody that has any issues with anything that's been said tonight, or any of the things that I say publicly, or any of the positions I take. I'd be happy to discuss that with anybody at any point, whether publicly or privately. But But yeah, anyway, I think that it was, I think this had to come to a head. I think these tensions have been rising for a while, and that this had to, this has to come to the surface, because I think that there's emerging very distinctly different strategies and viewpoints, and the pressures that we're feeling are causing that to happen. And so yeah, there are things that need to be discussed and examined. But anyway, other than that, I really appreciate you guys having me on here. It was good to be on here for such an epic episode. And I think that just from having worked with you guys for the last couple years, we're able now to have these really in-depth discussions about the strategy and where we're going, and we're just kind of digging deeper into these levels of I mean, the thing is, and the reason why it's also important that you've brought this up tonight is because, I mean, shit is hitting the fan. Like, things are getting crazy of all the stuff that they're proposing to do, which is why we do need to be clear-headed about it, and we do need to get our best and brightest together to figure out what the hell are we going to do about this. What is the best strategy? How do we best reach people? So yeah, anyway, just happy to be part of this, guys, and always a good discussion. Of course, you can check out the best way to find out what's going on with the White Art Collective is just to go to our website. We're posting all kinds of stuff that's happening in the community. You can find our links to Twitter and DLive and BitChute and all that stuff, Gab as well. And yeah, we've got another big project that we're working on very quickly is that I think you alluded to this, Jason. We're working on putting together a 3D gallery. So we're going to gather visual artists, 2D, 3D, some sculpture and different things of that nature. It's basically going to be, you'll be able to kind of navigate it. I think it'll be kind of like Google Maps, but Zorchwave, our 3D animator, is helping us to put that together. So the idea there being kind of what we touched on earlier is having it be very immersive. We really got to we need to immerse people in what we're doing. I said earlier, to have people subsumed by what we're doing, but also just to be very immersed in it to where we're kind of memeing it into reality. And that's why I like the idea of that 3D gallery. It's just more interactive that way. But and yeah, other than that, we've got tons of more stuff we're working on with WAC, and there's some really big stuff coming up in the not too distant future. I can't really talk about it right now, but big stuff that is next level, just like what you guys are doing. Taking things to the next level, and we're going to start reaching out more and more to just a broader swath of our folks. So thank you guys so much for having me. It's always an absolute pleasure. You guys are gentlemen, and again, appreciate the passion. Yeah, let's keep doing it, keep making it happen.
Well, right back at you, Jeff. And I applaud everything that you've done, how you've built this. As you said, you didn't even know where it was going to go, and it was just you and a few people in the beginning. And now, as you said, it's developed its own gravitational pull, and it's hard for you even to keep track of everything going on. That is damn impressive, and you should be proud, but not rest on your laurels, as none of us should. We just keep going forward and forward and forward, putting one foot in front of the other. But yeah, it was what things that were said tonight had to be said. And Jason, I'm with you. I support you. We've worked some of this out and held our tongues for a while, talked about some of it privately. And I only hope that for the best of all of our people and all people everywhere, because we're based on love, and that actually means something. That's not just a throwaway statement. It's not a platitude. But if you're new here, you just have to stick around to see what that really looks and feels like day in and day out. But as always, I'm glad to do this with you. Love doing this with you all, and thank you all listening live for sticking in with us and being active in the chat and giving your thoughts and everything. As always, this will be on the afterparty.tv, our shared site. It's all free. You can search old episodes by topic, by guest. My site is thegreatorder.com. That is the catalog of all that I do. I mostly do creative work, and I have no new music coming out soon. That's for you, Mama, if you're still listening, giving me your nods of encouragement. So lots more coming. Please follow our mailing list, social media, mainly bookmark our websites because you never know what's going to go on with social media. But while we do have the social media, be there as much as you can. Be the algorithm, as I like to say. We're ridiculously shadow banned. I'm like wondering if I should start a new account maybe for my music on Twitter, because as crazy as Twitter is, and as much as there's bad news I don't like seeing in my feed, there's still a bunch of people I know and I like interacting with. They tell me they don't even see what I share. It's like it's crickets sometimes. It's sad. It takes the fun out of it. All these that's one of the least of our troubles, but that's one of the ways that we're shadow banned and banned outright sometimes and have to deal with all that stuff. I just want to have fun with my friends, but so it goes. Anyway, share it around. That's what I was originally saying. You have to be the algorithm. So don't count on these social media platforms to have our stuff show up in your feed. If you like what you heard, send it to someone, email it to someone, share it on your social media, repost things. It goes a long way. Make clips if you can, if you want to. That's a really helpful way. We have a few clip makers. We could do with a couple dozen more. That would really, really help. So we appreciate everything. And Jason, I give it to you. Until next time.
I thank you, dear brother. And I thank everybody for being here. And I'm looking at the live chat. So many magnificent people here right now. Full Moon Ancestry, American Zarathustra, Nordic Iron, Natarific, Euphemia, Jessica. Just so many great folks. And that's just at first blush. Elaine Sabatino. I want to thank our moderators today. Zero Talent was with us, and we got a financial gift from that champion. Ezra was here as well. Thank you. Ian, another so many champions here. So people who do things, people who get out into the world and make a difference for the recapture of our people. Not folks who fantasize about making a difference in the world through some sort of violence or some sort of ugliness or some hatred of some other group of people, but people who are actually going out with love, like the great Elaine Sabatino, who, folks, if you didn't see it, these little beauties out there they have been rocking the world again and again and again. And our lexicon ends up being used. You should see how pathetic it is, how pathetic the anti-whites look when they try to combat the lexicon and dialectics of the practice of going free. It is a joy to watch. And it is also wonderful for how many folks it ends up bringing in. So many champions. And this one, we can end on this wonderful note here at the very end. A big round of applause for Zero Talent and for everybody who financially gifted tonight. A big thank you to everybody who participated in service to White Wellbeing and the conversation tonight. And a big hello to everyone who is just quietly watching live or who will watch in replay. Zero Talent coming in here at the end of the stream with a financial gift of $50 $50 from Zero Talent, one of our moderators. Thank you, dear brother. And he writes, they hate you because you are doing what works. And on that note, I look forward to seeing you all again next time.